Novel Empire. Immortal God of Battle. Chapter 381 Marrow Cleansing. Upon hearing Xiang Nan's words, the abbot clasped his hands together and said, "Junior brother Tingjing, since Xiang Nan has made this request, bring him to the Buddhist temple to discuss it." "Yes," Tingjing said. "And this demon?" The abbot looked at Chen Hengjuan and said, "My Feiyin temple is a pure Buddhist land. Since I have promised martial nephew Xiang Nan to spare your life, you should quickly go down the mountain." Although Feiyin temple would not kill Chen Hengjuan, at present, the attitude of these monks towards the demons was not friendly at all. "Brother Xiang." Chen Hengjuan cupped his fists and said to Xiang Nan, "Black snake mouth, we have already drank. I will wait for you 3 days when I go down the mountain today. If I can see you 3 days later, I will drink wine and talk to you again. If I don't see you 3 days later, I will leave on my own. It will only depend on fate between you and me." "Ha, good. If we can see each other within 3 days, then it will be our 5th encounter." Xiang Nan smiled and said goodbye to Chen Heng. "You do it." After sending Chen Hengjuan away, Xiang Nan waved to Dream Butterfly and sent her out of the mountain gate. "Off you go," Xiang Nan said. Meng Dai curled her lips and said, "Don't leave. If you have the ability, come and hit me." Xiang Nan frowned. "Don't you understand? I'm saving you." The abbot and elder Tingjing discovered that you're a woman during the competition. You can fool others, but you can't fool their high monks. It's just that they didn't have time to pay attention to you because of the chaos. Do you really think they will let you off if they discover that you're cultivating the heavenly devil cult's cultivation technique again? Meng Dai thought for a moment and said, "Then I'll wait for you in the town below the mountain. You must come find me." With that, she jumped down the mountain. Xiang Nan shook his head helplessly and returned to the Flying Cloud Temple. He went to the Dhyana room with Elder Tingjing. Inside the Dhyana room, sandalwood fragrance was ethereal. Xiang Nan and Tingjing sat cross-legged opposite each other. Then Tingjing said, "Martial nephew Xiang Nan, I wonder what kind of martial skill you want to exchange for. The Mo Ko finger and Prajna palm that I taught you earlier only have the first level of the chant. Do you want the complete chant?" Xiang Nan shook his head and took out the 3 cultivation methods of revolving astral qi, Xiantian astral qi, and primordial astral qi and placed them on the table. "To tell you the truth, what this junior wants to exchange for this time is not martial skills, but cultivation techniques. Although Buddhist martial skills are formidable, this junior knows that his patience is insufficient. He is unable to cultivate day after day, year after year." Tingjing nodded and said, "That's true. The martial skills of the martial arts sect are fast, powerful, and have a shorter profit period. My Buddhist profound art is slow and powerful, but it has a very long period of profit. A secular person like martial nephew Xiang Nan should not be willing to cultivate hard." Xiang Nan thought for a moment, then placed the Sun God technique on the table and said, "This junior is here for this Sun God technique." As the host of the Flying Dragon Institute, Tingjing was originally a complete martial artist. When he saw the other 3 martial arts techniques, he only glanced at them faintly and didn't have any interest. However, when he saw the Sun God technique, he immediately became excited. He actually picked up the book with both of his hands and said, "This is the famous Sun God technique." Xiang Nan nodded and said, "The reason why this junior learns Buddhist profound arts so quickly is because of the Great Freedom Scripture and the Sun God skill. This junior has discovered that this Sun God technique seems to be more suitable for Buddhist profound arts. With the Sun God technique as the foundation, cultivating Buddhist profound arts is not only fast, but also powerful. Tingjing caressed the cover of the book and muttered, "Good, good, this is truly a peerless miracle. Senior, you can flip through it." Xiang Nan smiled. "What?" Tingjing was shocked. "You didn't even exchange such a precious cultivation technique with me, yet you let me see it directly?" Xiang Nan said, "Master Su Kaiyu actually hopes that more people can cultivate the Sun God technique. However, the secondary technique is too difficult to begin with, and there are many dangers after learning it. That's why she won't easily pass it. On to outsiders. Your Excellency is compassionate and admirable." As Tingjing spoke, his hands trembled as he flipped through the Great Eye technique. Xiang Nan did not disturb him and just sat there with a smile and waited quietly. This Sun Shen technique seemed to be very fast. It could be finished in about half an hour, but Tingjing spent 3 hours until late at night. In the end, Tingjing closed the book with satisfaction and said, "This poor monk carefully pondered. This Sun God technique is indeed not a trivial one, but it's just that it's not perfect enough." Xiang Nan smiled and took the words, saying, "Moreover, the Sun God technique is too powerful." This junior came to Feiyin Temple to find a technique that can neutralize the Sun God technique. Tingjing was stunned for a moment, then laughed heartily, "I see. No wonder Martial Nephew asked me to see the Sun God technique first." Xiang Nan smiled embarrassedly and said, "This junior's little thoughts have been seen through by Martial Uncle. But as far as you can see, does Feiyin Temple have the cultivation method I want?" As Tingjing recalled the Sun God technique's incantation, he began to ponder. Junior brother Tinkong's Great Freedom scripture was originally very good, but this Heart Sutra stresses too much on letting nature take its course and releasing its temperament. It will not be of much help to Sun God technique. If not, use the Prajna Heart Sutra. Tingjing muttered to herself, then shook her head to deny it, saying, "Neither can it. The Prajna Heart Sutra is also extremely strong, and it is not very helpful to the Sun God technique. Then it's not good to use the Baoyuomi Heart Sutra. This kind of Heart Sutra is too gentle. Often, cultivating it will cause people to have no desire or desire. Not only will it not be helpful to the Sun God technique, it will also have side effects." Xiang Nan did not disturb her, so she allowed Tingjing to think alone. As Tingjing pondered, he used both of his hands to compare strokes. What he was thinking was that he was distracted. At dawn, Tingjing finally patted his forehead and said, I'm really confused. I've always wanted to neutralize the technique, but I forgot that the best medium for neutralizing the Sun God technique is actually a human." As he spoke, Tingjing slapped his forehead and ran out, leaving Xiang Nan sitting there dumbfounded. Xiang Nan was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly and said, "Master is really a martial arts idiot." Later, Tingjing walked in with a book in her hand. Xiang Nan looked around and saw 3 large characters written on the cover of the book, "Marrow Cleansing Scripture." Tingjing said happily, "Our Buddhist sect has many types of profound arts. There are 72 unique martial arts skills. However, there are differences in attributes between us. When cultivating, it is inevitable for us to collide with each other. And this marrow cleansing scripture has a mediating effect. Martial Nephew Xiang Nan, if you cultivate this scripture, it will definitely be beneficial to your Sun God technique." Xiang Nan was overjoyed and said, "Martial Uncle, this marrow cleansing scripture is a precious treasure of Buddhism. Are you really willing to teach it to me?" Tingjing said, "Martial Nephew Xiang Nan has a strong sense of righteousness in his heart. Cultivating this technique is beneficial and harmless to all living beings in the world. Why not? Martial Nephew, receive the scriptures." Xiang Nan hurriedly bowed and held the scripture in his hands. The plan of the day lies in the morning. You should start cultivating now, and martial uncle will assist you from the side. Tingjing said. Chapter 382 Unprecedented. Xiang Nan originally wanted to read it carefully and wait until he truly understood before going to cultivate. He didn't expect that Tingjing would actually be willing to personally guide him. This was the best. Immediately, Xiang Nan sat cross-legged on the prayer mat, his eyes slightly closed, his hands crossed and naturally landed on the spiritual sea. Tingjing sat cross-legged on the prayer mat beside him and said, "The marrow cleansing scripture is divided into several sections. Listen carefully. The universe has supreme reason, and it is difficult to see and hear. Anyone who can comprehend it belongs to Yuan Qi. Qi is unreasonable and unlucky, so there is no need for reason and no Qi. It is the same when we meet." Xiang Nan listened carefully and continued to cultivate quietly. After listening to one paragraph, a voice came from the next. Yuan Qi has been dense for a long time, transforming into water, fire, earth, water, and the top of the Kunlun mountains. Sit quietly and generate heat. There are fire appliances in the water, and humidity and heat are transpiration. After the second stage of cultivation, Xiang Nan felt as if his entire body was immersed in a hot spring. His meridians and spiritual sea were both warm and moist, like a piece of flawless jade. And then the last few paragraphs. All things are not all things. They are one with me. They form phantoms and assist in business. Someone has to have something. Walk like a blind man without a staff. Lift your feet low and steadily advance. Step by step like this. After completing the tendon transformation technique, you will become a Vajra physique. External sensation cannot be invaded, and food is not accumulated. You are still afraid of injuries to the 7 emotions, and your primordial spirit cannot control itself. Even though you possess the Vajra phase, you are still a flesh and blood drive. Tingjing wholeheartedly read the scriptures for Xiang Nan, and occasionally mixed in some of his own experiences to help Xiang Nan understand them better. After practicing all of the marrow cleansing scriptures, Xiang Nan felt that he was completely new. Martial artists often cultivated different kinds of martial techniques, just like a cup of water. They were constantly filled with all kinds of water in the rivers, lakes, and seas, and it was inevitable that they would be mixed into one. This marrow cleansing scripture had turned Xiang Nan into a new cup of water that was flawless and clean. However, after he finished practicing, Xiang Nan let out a long sigh. "I'm still afraid of the 7 emotions. My primordial spirit can't control itself. Even though I have the diamond form, I'm still flesh and blood." These few scriptures caused Xiang Nan to involuntarily think of the high monk who had ascended to the 18th floor of the dungeon. It was inevitable that he would feel sad. Na Tingjing said, "Martial nephew Xiang Nan, you are not allowed to eat or drink for the next 3 days. You should practice this technique without interruption." "Yes." Xiang Nan nodded respectfully. This time, he no longer needed Tingjing's guidance and started cultivating. This martial nephew Nan is a natural genius in martial arts. Tingjing nodded and muttered to himself, "I don't think I could understand when I first cultivated the marrow cleansing scripture for 10 days. As for martial nephew Xiang Nan, he actually learned it all in one go, which is admirable." At this point, Tingjing spread out the technique of the sun god technique and began to cultivate according to the incantation. In the following 3 days, the room was extremely quiet. It was as if no one was sitting inside. They didn't even close the door and cultivated so freely. Occasionally, the little monk who cleaned the room would pass by. He couldn't help but look inside enviously. He envied that Xiang Nan had such great fortune that he could actually get the guidance of the Flying Dragon Institute's headmaster personally. Especially Yundu, he came here every day with a smile on his face. He was truly happy for Xiang Nan. This marrow cleansing scripture was not a battle technique. Cultivating it would not have any effect on Yuan Qi or cultivation realms, but its greatest function was to neutralize and regulate. Xiang Nan practiced for 3 days and 3 nights. When he opened his eyes on the morning of the 4th day, he felt that his entire body had changed. However, what was different was that he couldn't even tell him clearly. He turned around and saw that the futon Tingjing was sitting on was empty. Turning around, he saw that Tingjing was standing in the courtyard looking up at the sky, her eyes filled with confusion. Xiang Nan hurriedly went out and said, "Greetings, martial uncle Tingjing." Tingjing looked at the sky and sighed regretfully. "I tried to cultivate the sun god technique, but 3 days and 3 nights passed, yet I didn't feel the slightest bit of the sun's power." Xiang Nan did not know how to comfort her, so he could only say, when this junior cultivated the sun god technique, it was very difficult. Tingjing sighed again, then relaxed, saying, "Not everyone can learn the sun god technique. Cultivating this technique does not have much effect on martial arts. It all depends on one's luck and good fortune. No wonder there are so few people on Sun Peak. This technique is not perfect, let alone extremely difficult to cultivate." The Sun Shin technique wasn't perfect, but the more troublesome part was the beginner. If you don't have enough talent and good fortune, you might not even be able to cultivate the first level of the incantation for 10 to 8 years. Forget it, this poor monk is too greedy. The relieved Tingjing smiled and said to Xiang Nan, "Junior martial nephew, you can try to see if that marrow cleansing scripture is helpful to the sun god technique." Xiang Nan was also very excited. He hurriedly activated the sun god technique to temper the sun violently. However, when he saw a powerful sunlight smash down, enveloping Xiang Nan's entire body, the sunlight was incomparably dazzling, emitting extremely fierce power. Although Tingjing had already figured it out, seeing the wonders of the sun god technique with his own eyes, he couldn't help but regret it. Xiang Nan fought back and tried to see if the marrow cleansing scripture would be of any help to him. He really couldn't. He still had an ice crystal. Normally, when the sun was released for about 15 seconds, it had already reached a dangerous stage, and the probability of a backlash had begun to appear. When the time came to 20 seconds, the probability of backlash increased greatly. When the time came to 30 seconds, it was almost certain that the backlash would occur. But today, Xiang Nan had already used the sun-quenching technique for a minute, and he still couldn't feel the slightest bit of danger of backlash. Xiang Nan was overjoyed. His excitement was simply indescribable. The time of quenching the sun was still continuing, and Xiang Nan was getting more and more excited. Could it be that the purification of marrow scripture could really solve the problem of the sun god skill's backlash? In that case, wouldn't Master be safe in the future? Can you use the sun god technique at will? At this time, the quenching of the sun had been going on for 5 minutes, but the sunlight that descended from the sky began to weaken. The sun god technique was originally a high consumption technique. Even if it didn't backfire, it wouldn't be able to last for a lifetime. By the time Xiang Nan lasted for 8 minutes, he was almost unable to hold on. After 9 minutes, the sun gradually dissipated. Xiang Nan took a deep breath and laughed excitedly. 9 minutes of quenching the sun was something that Xiang Nan normally didn't even dare to think about. If he hadn't exhausted all of his Yuan Qi, he would definitely have been able to last longer. "Thank you, martial uncle." Xiang Nan was so excited that he hurriedly knelt down on one knee to Tingjing. However, the smile on Tinkong's face was not too much. He shook his head and said, "It seems that the purification of marrow scripture is still unable to solve the backlash of the sun god skill." Ah. Why? Xiang Nan was puzzled and said, "This junior clearly succeeded just now." Tingjing shook her head. "I have personally witnessed the entire process of quenching the sun. The marrow cleansing scripture has indeed neutralized the sun god technique, but it is only limited to the third level of earth yang. When you learn the third level of the heavenly yang scripture, this marrow cleansing scripture won't be able to be suppressed." Chapter 383 Yang Flame Saber Technique. Hearing this, Xiang Nan was also disappointed. There were 3 stages in the sun god technique: the earth yang third layer, the heavenly yang third layer, and the blazing sun third layer. He was currently at the second level of the earth yang realm, but if the marrow cleansing scripture could only suppress the backlash of the third level of the earth yang realm, it would be useless to his master. Didn't that mean that his trip to the western regions was in vain? Thinking of this, Xiang Nan couldn't help but sigh. Tingjing said, "There must be a way before the carriage arrives. From my short experience, this sun divine art is the strongest cultivation method in the world, but I believe that one day, you will find a solution." "Thank you, martial uncle, for comforting me. Since that's the case, then this junior won't disturb you any longer." Xiang Nan bowed to Tingjing and prepared to leave. However, Tingjing said, "At this moment, Li Temple is not safe. I'm afraid that the heavenly profound sect will be ambushing you. If they want to plot against you, it's better for you to stay and cultivate for a bit longer." "Excellent. Let me take this opportunity to give you some pointers on the Buddhist profound arts you've learned." Xiang Nan said gratefully, "But, how dare this junior bother? There's no need to be too polite." Tingjing waved her hand and said, "Yundu, come." Yundu, who was guarding the side, immediately held the dragon blood saber up. Xiang Nan was naturally very happy when he found his weapon again. He took the dragon blood saber from his hand and caressed it lovingly. Tingjing said, "Martial nephew Xiang Nan has already learned the Mo finger. The prajna palm and the fingerless tribulation finger are not suitable for you. However, since you feel that you are not patient enough to cultivate in seclusion all year round, then the Mo finger and the prajna palm are no longer suitable for you. This poor monk is wondering if I can change these 2 Buddhist profound arts into saber techniques." Xiang Nan immediately became interested and hurriedly said, "If that's the case, then thank you, martial uncle." Tingjing took the dragon blood saber and placed it horizontally in front of him. Mo pointed has 3 styles. 3 goes to hell. I can't learn the sun god technique these few days, so I took the time to change it to a more easy and powerful saber technique. The benefits of doing so are obvious, but the downside is that you have wiped out the growth of this saber technique. However, with your current stage, using this saber is already considered infinite, even more powerful than Mo pointed at this stage. When you reach the heavenly origin realm, just abandon this saber technique." As he spoke, Tingjing suddenly slashed out with his saber. The sharp saber light flew out. The saber light was translucent and was fiery red. Second saber. Tingjing chopped again, and the sharp blade light turned into a flaming blade light, causing the air to be extremely hot. The third slash. Tingjing slashed again, and the blade light of this slash had already turned into a blood-red crescent moon. The blood color was so dense that it looked like it was about to drip down. Xiang Nan sucked in a breath of cold air, so strong. Tingjing said, "Although I haven't learned the sun god technique, I still understand the principles of the sun god technique. These three moves are based on the Sun God technique and the finger of Mo as the key. Junior martial nephew, if you use the Sun God technique, it will be even more powerful than what I used. This is the incantation that I copied yesterday. I'll leave it to you. Xiang Nan took the book and there were 4 words written on it, Yang Flame Saber Technique. Tingjing held the huge saber in her hand and continued, the power of the prajna palm is enormous. However, you lack a solid foundation in Buddhist techniques. If you use it, you will definitely suffer a backlash. Even I cannot change this point. I can only create a saber technique. You must use it carefully. As he spoke, Tingjing pointed his saber at the sky, and a 20-meter saber light soared into the sky. There were faintly visible scriptures on the blade light, looking extremely dignified. This is the saber light that I emitted from simulating the 5th level of origin return. As he spoke, Tingjing fiercely slashed the saber light down onto the ground. In an instant, there was a faint chanting sound in the sky. As the saber light slashed down, it emitted 100 zhang of intense light, causing the entire front yard to tremble. The instant Tingjing's saber light was about to hit the ground, he withdrew it and handed it to Xiang Nan. This is the modified saber technique of the prajna palm. It also has no growth, but at this stage, its power is limitless. Tingjing handed the saber light over to Xiang Nan and said, this is the modified saber technique of the prajna palm. Xiang Nan's blood boiled as he took the book. There were 3 words written on the book, dragon subduing / Martial nephew Xiang Nan, cultivate properly. In 3 days, I will test the results. Tingjing returned the dragon blood saber to Xiang Nan and turned around to leave. Xiang Nan didn't know how to be grateful to Tingjing, so he could only diligently cultivate. Just as Tingjing said, these 2 martial skills were compiled from the Sun God technique. Cultivating them was even harder than using Mo pointed and prajna palm. Fortunately, Xiang Nan had already learned the first layer of the Mo finger and prajna palm, so practicing the saber technique was not difficult. 3 days later, Tingjing brought Yundu back to inspect it. Xiang Nan painstakingly cultivated for 3 days. On the 4th day, he respectfully welcomed Tingjing and said, reporting to martial uncle, this junior has already learned it well. Let's see. Tingjing smiled and nodded. Xiang Nan used the Yang Flame Saber technique first. The first blade was mixed with flame light, the second blade was pure flame light, and the third blade was a blood-red crescent blade light. Junior brother Xiang Nan is even more powerful than the host in using these 3 sabers. Yundu was shocked as he watched from the side. When Xiang Nan executed the dragon slaying slash, it was also a 20-meter long blade light. A layer of indistinct scriptures appeared on the surface of the blade light, and it was extremely powerful. However, when he used this move, Xiang Nan himself was blown backwards by the terrifying backlash. He coughed out a large mouthful of blood and suffered internal injuries. However, the power of the dragon subduing / blade light had forced it to the 7th level of the origin return realm. Amazing, so amazing. Yundu couldn't help but applaud. I'm not busy, there's still a change of moves. Tingjing, however, smiled faintly, not in a hurry to praise him. Xiang Nan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said, martial uncle has already guessed it. There's another move. Yundu was filled with anticipation and hurriedly said, junior brother, hurry up and take a look. Xiang Nan pointed his saber at the sky and shouted, quench the sun. Suddenly, a fierce beam of sunlight descended, enveloping Xiang Nan. Under the state of quenching the sun, Xiang Nan used the Yang Flame Saber technique. The first blade shot out a blade light. The surface of the blade light was no longer an ordinary flame, but a fiercely burning young flame. The fire was actually light green. What a high temperature! Yundu couldn't help but cover his face with both hands, as if his face was being roasted by fire. Xiang Nan slashed out a second time, and the blade light completely turned into the yang fire blade light. It was a pure green flame blade light, and the temperature at the scene had risen by another level. Yundu had already retreated more than a dozen steps in a row before he could endure the high temperature. Xiang Nan took a deep breath and struck out with his third slash. This third slash was actually a pure white flame that was extremely fierce. It was as if the flames had been plucked from the sun. This saber light shot out at high speed, and the surface of the saber light was filled with flames of the sun. Its height was still 1 meter away from the ground, but because of this, the bluestone floor had actually melted into a long path of magma. Yundu did not withstand this saber strike, but the temperature of this saber strike had already forced Yundu to circulate his yuan qi to block it. Chapter 384. A small town under the mountain. So strong. Yundu's eyes widened. He simply couldn't believe what he was seeing. Martial Uncle already knew this would happen. Xiang Nan said with a satisfied smile, otherwise, I wouldn't have named it the Yang Flame Saber Technique. Tingjing smiled and said, Martial Nephew Xiang Nan, if your injuries aren't serious, you can try the dragon subduing slash. Xiang Nan nodded and continued to maintain the state of quenching the sun, raising the giant saber high into the sky. Immediately after, the surging power of the sun surged into the blade and rapidly condensed a 20-meter-long blade light into the sky. This time, the saber light was completely different. Not only did the 20-meter-long saber light condense yang flames, the temperature was frighteningly high, and there were indistinct scriptures appearing on the surface. What was even more surprising was that there were actually 2 chi dragons circling around the blade light. The 2 little dragons were about 5 meters long. They looked very similar to the legendary Azure Dragon, but they were formed from extremely hot gas. The 2 chi dragons slowly coiled around the saber light and rose up. The scriptures on the saber light were also constantly shining against each other. When Xiang Nan's saber landed, the terrifying saber light was like a soul nurtured on the surface of the sun. Its power slashed down, and the temperature alone caused the air to burn. Both Yundu and Tingjing were engulfed by the flames. Yundu waved his hand slightly and a faint strand of yuan qi wrapped around them. However, at the same time, the recoil Xiang Nan received was even more terrifying. He immediately blew Xiang Nan away and immediately spat out blood, causing him to suffer even more serious internal injuries. In Xiang Nan's hand, the blade light lost control and frantically landed on the ground. Tingjing quickly used his flower-picking finger on the saber light and used his powerful yuan qi to quickly disintegrate the dragon subduing saber light. He opened his hands and the saber light was continuously disintegrated into wisps of flames that eventually dissipated 3 meters above the ground. Tingjing said, this blade also has the power of the 7th level of origin return, but it is 3 times more powerful than the dragon subduing slash before the sun quenching. Yundu was stunned. He was stunned for a long time before he knew to run up and help Xiang Nan up. Xiang Nan clutched his chest and just as he stood up, he felt suffocated again and spat out a mouthful of blood. Tingjing poked Xiang Nan's body with his index finger and said, the dragon subduing slash uses the Prajna palm as its prototype. Although it is powerful, it is also very traumatic. Martial nephew Xiang Nan should use it with caution. This was the second time Tingjing had used the word cautiously to advise Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan hurriedly cupped his fists and said, this junior understands. Thank you, martial uncle, for your warning. Yes. Tingjing nodded and said, since you have already learned Mo Ku finger and Prajna palm, there is still a martial skill called Duo Luo Yi finger. Do you want to learn it? Xiang Nan's heart skipped a beat. He was looking forward to it, but after some thought, he shook his head and said, this junior is even greedy for more than he can chew, so he doesn't want Luo Yi to point at him. Tingjing stroked his beard and smiled, good, good, good. After all, your energy is limited. The more you learn, the more complicated it will become. In the future, you should specialize in this Yang Flame Saber technique and the dragon. Subduing slash. Although Xiang Nan regretted not being able to find a complete solution to the Sun God technique this time, it was still not bad. He had learned at least 3 powerful martial skills. Especially the phaseless tribulation finger, it was simply a great killing weapon that ignored the realm. Even if a half-saint realm expert was hit by his finger, he would still lose his realm. Of course, the prerequisite was that he could really hit such an expert. Before leaving, Xiang Nan thought twice and went to the 18th floor of the dungeon. Standing outside the prison gate, Xiang Nan knelt on both knees and said to the pitch-black cage, Senior said that we will never meet again, but this junior still broke the ring. I can't help but come and see Senior. Junior, I don't know what I can do for Senior. I'm really sad in my heart. At this moment, a hoarse sigh came from the dark and damp shadow of the dungeon. We are destined to meet. If you are fated to see a woman with 3 plum blossom mole between her eyebrows, tell her. I don't regret knowing her in this life. I am willing to atone for my sins in the dungeon. If it's your turn to come back, we'll meet again. Hearing these words, Xiang Nan burst into tears. Hearing a go sound from the shadows, Xiang Nan took a full 10 steps back before turning around and leaving. Xiang Nan said goodbye to Feiyin Temple and walked under the sunlight, but he looked up to the sky, sighing in his heart. That martial uncle Tinkong could still face the love between his children in the end, but now, he had already let go of it and saw through everything. With his ability to soar into the air, if he wanted to escape, the dungeon should not be able to stop him. He was willing to stay behind to atone for his sins. As for the affection for that demonic woman, it would be difficult to continue in this life, leaving only the next life to renew their previous fate. Xiang Nan sighed and said, life is so sad, so helpless, it only turns into a word of love. It's hard to break. Sigh. Within the storage ring, the Devil Sea Token's light became even more intense. From the looks of it, the Demon Sea was about to open. Xiang Nan originally did not plan to go to the town below the mountain to see Dream Butterfly. After all, the two of them were opposing each other, so it was not better to meet each other. But when he thought of martial uncle Tinkong, Xiang Nan hesitated for a while and still wanted to go down and talk to the demonic woman, Dream Butterfly. The town is small and there is only one inn. As soon as Xiang Nan entered, he saw the Dream Butterfly sitting at the table, playing with her hair boredom. Ha! Good brother, I knew you wouldn't be willing to leave me. Dream Butterfly was overjoyed when she saw Xiang Nan and ran towards him. Just as Xiang Nan was about to speak, he suddenly heard the wind behind him. Xiang Nan, be careful. The Dream Butterfly pushed Xiang Nan away, and then a fierce sword light descended from the sky. Dream Butterfly's right arm trembled, black gas wrapped around her hand, and she struck at the sword light with her palm. On his palm, the black gas transformed into an evil dragon, instantly shattering the formidable sword light into pieces. Xiang Nan suddenly turned around and saw 5 people standing on the roof across the street. The one leading them was Yusiheo. Haha! Yuziheo laughed wildly. Xiang Nan, I was waiting for you to come out. Quickly give me the incantation of the Great Freedom Scripture. Just the few of you. Xiang Nan said, I'm not going to look for you. You should be thanking the heavens. Instead, you came here to take the initiative to die. These 5 people were all at the 5th level of the origin realm. Apart from Yuziheo, who had some abilities, Xiang Nan didn't care about the others at all. Yuziheo hugged his shoulders and sneered, I know you've become stronger, but do you really think you've seen all of my strength? As he spoke, Yuziheo revealed his right arm, which was wrapped in dense bandages. What? Upon seeing the bandage, Xiang Nan immediately understood. The bandages on Yuziheo's right arm spread out one after another, revealing the strange patterns inside. He raised his right hand high and shouted, Eye of Glory. In the sky, a huge golden eyeball appeared. A ray of light shot down from that eyeball and enveloped Yuziheo. This time, his realm had actually jumped from the middle and late stages of the 5th level of origin return to the 7th level of origin return. Do you think that if you defeat Yidong, you won't be afraid anymore? That useless Yidong, how can he compare to me? Yuziheo laughed heartily, his entire body shrouded in a thick layer of golden light. Chapter 385 Penetration Failed. Xiang Nan's heart sank as he thought to himself, 7th level origin return, this is bad. Although Xiang Nan's strength had greatly increased, the problem he needed to worry about the most right now was not his strength, but the suppression of his cultivation realm. The difference between the 2 levels of cultivation had already begun to show signs of suppression, while the difference between the 3 levels of cultivation was already very obvious. Yuziheo laughed loudly, didn't you learn the phaseless tribulation finger? Come on, give me a try. Before he could finish speaking, Yuziheo's other 4 teammates had already surrounded him. No matter from which direction Xiang Nan released the tribulation finger, there were people in this direction who could help him block it. A few little thieves dare to show off in front of me. The dream butterfly smiled in disdain. Her body trembled slightly, and her yuan qi instantly condensed into a black evil dragon qi. Do you think I don't know who you are? Yuziheo suddenly threw something at Dream Butterfly. Alchemy Prison. Xiang Nan's pupils contracted. What Yuziheo threw out was a golden rope. The rope immediately twisted and condensed in midair, turning into a square golden cage that covered Mengdiepeng's voice. The alchemy prison was one of the weapons of the Heavenly Profound sect. This item was very precious. Normally, disciples of the Heavenly Profound sect would never be able to obtain it. It seemed that Song Mingcheng had temporarily given the alchemy prison to Yuziheo for use. Yuziheo sneered and said, originally, this cage was reserved for Xiang Nan, but since you, a demonic woman, don't know what's good for you and want to ruin the Profound Sky sect, then I'll use it against you. The dream butterfly continuously smashed into the alchemy prison, fiercely bombarding the cage with evil dragon qi. However, after the cage was attacked, a buzzing sound sparkled once again. What a little thief! When I get out, I will definitely cut you into thousands of pieces. Meng Dai's eyes were filled with killing intent. That terrifying killing intent caused Yuziheo to tremble. Yuziheo hurriedly said, hurry up and attack. This demonic woman's realm is too high. With my current realm controlling the cage, I won't be able to trap her for long. After saying that, the 4 teammates immediately walked around Yuziheo and simultaneously released their flower-picking fingers towards Xiang Nan. These 4 people could actually use their flower-picking fingers as well. The 4 flower-picking fingers forcefully grabbed Xiang Nan's hands and feet. Under the protection of the crowd, Yuziheo raised his right hand, and the large eyes above his head immediately turned into flaming eyes. A flaming beam of light shot towards Xiang Nan from the third finger of Mo Ku pointed. "Senior brother, you can't kill him. If he dies, he won't be able to find out the great freedom scripture." A disciple cried out in shock. "It doesn't matter. I just want to cut off his arms and bring them back for questioning." Yuziheo looked confident. Xiang Nan raised his hand to temper the sun and directly executed the third stance of the Yang Flame Saber technique. A pure white Yang Flame Saber light whistled out. The blade light collided with Yuziheo's Mo Ku fingers, but the two sides were stalemate. The fierce finger force was constantly shooting at the blade light, and the blade light was forced to hover in midair to contend against the finger force. The saber light and the flame beams collided with each other, and a surging flame spread out. "What kind of martial skill is this?" That Yuziheo was shocked and said, "I, as a 7th level origin returner, can't do anything to you, a 4th level origin returner." The strength of the 7th level of origin return was much stronger than the 4th level of origin return. Adding on the suppression of his cultivation realm, Yuziheo believed that he could kill Xiang Nan in one move. He didn't expect that things would turn out like this. Yuziheo's eyes were filled with horror, and then this horror turned into anger. He gritted his teeth and said, "The more you are like this, the more I will not forgive you. Letting a monster like you live in the world is always a big problem in my heart. Damn it, are you 4 dry eaters? Hurry up and control him. How can you let him slash out with a knife?" The 4 teammates were desperately pulling Xiang Nan's limbs with their flower fingers, but they were already sweating profusely. This brat is so strong." One of his teammates gritted his teeth and said, "We can't hold him anymore. Trash. All of them are trash." Yuziheo flew into the air angrily and shouted, "I must personally do it." As he spoke, Yuziheo raised the folding fan in his hand high up. The folding fan was instantly wrapped in golden light, and it instantly became 20 meters tall. As soon as Xiang Nan saw him jump into the air, his middle finger of his left hand closed together and a 10-meter-long Buddha phantom wrapped around Xiang Nan. Phaseless tribulation finger. Yuziheo was shocked. He instinctively wanted to dodge, but he was suddenly stunned. He smiled and said, "Why should I dodge? Just use the phaseless tribulation finger to point at me. Come on." Xiang Nan also paused for a moment, but in the end, he did not point it down. After all, Yuziheo still had 4 teammates. "Ha ha ha, Xiang Nan, what can you do to me? Surrender." Yuziheo slapped down the huge folding fan. The golden light on the folding fan shot over Tenjiang, carrying terrifying might as it smashed towards Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth and slashed out at the folding fan with his third strike of Yang Flame. A ray of Yang Flame saber light soared into the sky and sliced heavily onto the folding fan. The blade sliced through the folding fan fiercely, emitting an ear-piercing scream. "It's blocked again." Yuziheo said angrily, "What kind of martial skill is this? I'm so angry, I'm so angry." Yuziheo's long hair fluttered in anger, almost going crazy. He was not angry that Xiang Nan was too strong, but because he saw the gap between himself and Xiang Nan. If Xiang Nan was also at the 7th level of origin return, wouldn't he be vulnerable to a single blow in Xiang Nan's hands? No matter what, I, Yuziheo, am a genius of the profound sky sect. Today, I was actually toyed with by such a brat. Yuziheo gritted his teeth and said, "Die. Die. Die. The enormous golden light folding fan slammed down again and again, continuously bombarding the young flame saber light, striking it more than 10 times in a row before shattering the incomparably powerful saber light. However, the other 4 did not dare to withdraw their flower-picking fingers, otherwise, if Xiang Nan was allowed to regain his freedom, he would immediately kill the 4 of them. Fall again. Yuziheo waved his folding fan and continued to smash it. Xiang Nan could only carry the pulling force of his flower finger and use all of his strength to slash again. Yang Yan's saber light shot out and collided with the golden fan. Yuziheo's eyes were red with anger, but Xiang Nan thought to himself that something was wrong. If he used the Yang tempering sword technique and the powerful Yang flame saber technique, he could indeed fight Yuziheo to the death for the time being. However, Yuziheo had more Yuan Qi than him. When he ran out of oil, he was truly a lamb to be slaughtered. Let's go. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth and immediately activated the Void Stone, turning his body into a streak of black lightning and rushing into the alchemy prison. He wrapped his arms around Dream Butterfly's waist and didn't stop to penetrate it. But then, there was a loud noise from Peng. The Dream Butterfly was stopped by Xiang Nan to penetrate the cage. In the end, she crashed into the cage fiercely. Only Xiang Nan managed to penetrate through the cage. Shit! Xiang Nan suddenly felt dizzy. The power of the Void Stone could definitely drag others into the air, but it was actually unable to drag them through the object together. Chapter 386 Life hangs in the balance. This was the first time Xiang Nan had escaped with someone else using a Void Stone. But at this moment, Xiang Nan's consciousness had already blurred. If he wanted to fight Yuziheo again, there was basically no chance of winning. As for Yuziheo and his teammates, they looked at each other and were stunned by Xiang Nan's black lightning. Then, what was that just now? One of his teammates opened his mouth wide in shock. Not only did he break free from the flower-picking finger, he was actually able to penetrate the alchemy prison. Yuziheo was also dumbfounded. He rubbed his eyes hard and said, "My God, this kid's movement is so strange. No, why are you still standing there? Take advantage of this opportunity to capture him." Xiang Nan knew that he had no chance of winning, so he could only endure the pain and take out one of the 3 strands of Sun Sword Qi that his master had bestowed on him to kill Yuziheo on the spot. However, he paused slightly. The 3 strands of sword qi hidden between his eyebrows actually trembled a few times and could not be released. Shit, shit, shit. Xiang Nan was very anxious. The 3 strands of Sun Sword Qi were truly heaven-defying. It was impossible for them to be activated by Xiang Nan's Yuan Qi. That was why Su Kaiyu hid the sword Qi between Xiang Nan's eyebrows. She could only use Xiang Nan's will to drive it. However, Xiang Nan had used the Void Stone once, and his consciousness was already very blurry. He was actually unable to release the sword Qi. This time, it was really a mistake step by step. Xiang Nan wanted to escape, but he couldn't bear to leave behind the Dream Butterfly. With Yuziheo's viciousness, he didn't know how to torture the Dream Butterfly. Go all out. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth and placed the giant saber behind him. His right middle finger and index finger moved together and pointed at Yuziheo. Phaseless Tribulation Finger. An illusion of a Buddha stood up out of thin air. Xiang Nan struck the Phaseless Tribulation Finger, and the finger power shrouded in black gas directly hit Yuziheo. Yuziheo was shocked and his cultivation immediately dropped by a level, but he laughed loudly again. Come on, poke me a few more fingers. You idiot. Ha 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 ha. Xiang Nan's realm had already fallen to the middle stage of the third level of the origin return realm. He gritted his teeth and pointed at Yuziheo again. At this time, Xiang Nan was at the early stage of the third level of the origin core realm, so he pointed out the third tribulation-free finger. His cultivation realm had directly declined to the mid-second level of the origin. Yuziheo retreated to the fourth level of origin return. Yuziheo laughed wildly, again and again. "That's great." The other four teammates were overjoyed. They were at the fifth level of the origin core realm, and the four of them had a huge advantage in fighting against Xiang Nan at the second level of the origin core realm. But on the other side, there was a buzzing sound and a furious rebuke, "Little thief. This girl wants your life. Aya, not good." Yuziheo was so frightened that his heart suddenly stopped. Only then did he react. Xiang Nan used the phaseless tribulation finger to hit him, not to win, but to lower his realm. In this way, the alchemy prison would lose control. Sure enough, with a loud explosion, the alchemy prison was blasted open by the dream butterfly's fist and transformed back into a golden rope that flew into the sky. "Get out of here." Tianyuan fifth layer dream butterfly escaped. The dream butterfly flew out and a pocket-sized evil dragon chi wrapped around its small fist, smashing towards Yuziheo. That Yuziheo knew that his life was in danger, so he hysterically said, "Xiang Nan. Even if I die, I will drag you along with me." As he roared, Yuziheo threw up a small square cauldron. The cauldron was only about an inch tall, and there were 6 openings on the cauldron. It was still spitting out strange green flames. For directions demon refining cauldron. Xiang Nan's heart sank as he thought to himself that he had given an explanation today. Yuziheo's palm landed on the square cauldron, causing the cauldron to instantly explode. Green flames surged out of the cauldron, and Yuziheo's palm penetrated the green flames, turning into a green flame palm that flew towards Xiang Nan. At this moment, the dream butterfly flew towards Yuziheo, while Yuziheo's jade green flame palm flew towards Xiang Nan. He wanted to trade his life with Xiang Nan, regardless of his life or death. Meng Dai and the green flame palm just happened to brush past each other. She felt that the flame palm actually contained incomparable power. She was instantly shocked and could no longer care about killing Yuziheo. She smashed her fist into the flame palm. However, with this punch, the palm had only shrunk by a fifth, from 5 meters to 4 meters tall. This palm flew extremely fast, and there was no time for Dream Butterfly to consume it with a single punch. Dream Butterfly gritted her teeth and directly surpassed her palm, pouncing on Xiang Nan's body. Boom! The green flame palm slammed heavily on the back of the Dream Butterfly, and with a terrifying cry of green fire, it actually drilled into the Dream Butterfly's body. At that moment, Dream Butterfly's eyes turned strange green. Wow! A mouthful of blood sprayed all over Xiang Nan's body. Dream Butterfly. Xiang Nan hugged the Dream Butterfly and roared, "Ah, ah, ah, ah. Yuziheo, I want your life." Xiang Nan was about to crack his eyebrows, and the sword chi between his eyebrows began to vibrate even more intensely. It only emitted a loud buzzing sound. It made Xiang Nan's eyebrows brighter and brighter. The amount of time he had used up caused Xiang Nan's consciousness to regain consciousness. He roared crazily and recklessly to activate the sword chi. In an instant, a ray of sun sword chi soared into the sky. The sword chi pierced through the sky and emitted a radiance of 10,000 feet. Ah, what is this? What the hell is this? Yuziheo paled in shock. Die! Die! Xiang Nan slashed down with his sword. That Yuziheo and the other 5 were all scared mad and ran away, but how could they escape the might of the sun sword chi? He saw the sword slash down, and the sun and moon changed color. The earth was split apart by a single sword strike. Below was the bottomless abyss. That scene was extremely terrifying, as if it had given the entire world's surface in half. However, Yuziheo and the others didn't even let out a miserable scream when they were blasted into dust and burned into green smoke. Meng Dai, wake up. Xiang Nan picked up the dream butterfly and didn't dare to stay here for too long. He was afraid that someone from the heavenly profound sect would catch up, so he carried the dream butterfly and turned into a streak of black lightning, disappearing in an instant. 100 miles away, in a dense jungle. Ha! Xiang Nan hugged the dream butterfly and slapped her face fiercely. He remembered his master's orders. He couldn't use sword chi until he died, but if he used sword chi to kill Ziheo from the beginning, how could dream butterfly be struck by his palm? He had used the void stone twice, and his consciousness had already been exhausted to the point of being incomparably incomplete. Adding on the fact that his rage was now attacking his heart, he fainted on the spot. After hanging around for an unknown amount of time, Xiang Nan felt a splitting headache and slowly opened his eyes. The first thing he heard was the faint sound of vomiting beside him. He hurriedly turned his head and saw that the dream butterfly was fainting and vomiting blood with a faint sweet taste. Meng Dai, don't die. Xiang Nan panicked. He hurriedly picked up the dream butterfly and used the 9 purities universe technique to expel the poison from the dream butterfly. The dream butterfly slowly opened her eyes. At this moment, she was extremely weak. Even her beautiful face was covered in green patterns that resembled a spider web. Good brother, you still care about me. Dream butterfly stretched out her hand weakly and stroked Xiang Nan's face. Don't talk. Xiang Nan was both angry and anxious, as if he had gone mad and channeled his yuan qi into the dream butterfly's body. However, the 9 purities cosmos art was the same as the vast heaven pure essence art. The healing effect he cultivated was the best. If he used it to treat other people's injuries and expel poison, the effect would be greatly reduced. Xiang Nan's eyes were red and tears rolled in his eyes. Why are you so stupid? Don't die. I don't want you to die. Meng Dai forced a smile. Are you crying for me? Before I die, when I saw you shed tears for me, my heart was filled with meaning. As she spoke, Dream Butterfly tilted her body and collapsed to the ground. Her entire body was covered in green patterns. As if struck by lightning, Xiang Nan stared blankly at Dream Butterfly's gradually freezing body. No. You can't die. Even if I risk my life, I will still save you. He gritted his teeth. Sun-quenching. Boom. A fierce sunlight descended, enveloping Xiang Nan and the dream butterfly. The quenching of the sun itself was the power of the extreme sun, carrying with it a certain exorcism and detoxification effect. Xiang Nan stuffed the last 800 spirits pills into Dream Butterfly's mouth and straightened her body. Her hands crazily circulated the 9 purities cosmos art, sending yuan qi into Dream Butterfly's body regardless of the price. The Dream Butterfly's vitality was about to come to an end, but this time, she coughed violently and spat out a large mouthful of blood. Live. Xiang Nan was overjoyed and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely cure you. No matter what price you pay, I won't let you die." He wiped away a handful of sweat and continued to pour yuan qi into Dream Butterfly regardless. The green patterns around the dream butterfly's body were slightly lighter. Chapter 387 Edge of Life and Death. The situation of the dream butterfly eased slightly. Xiang Nan did not dare to slack off in the slightest. Instead, he wanted to take advantage of the victory to pursue her and continue to detoxify her. The poison of the Four Directions demon refining cauldron was no small matter. This was something that a vicious elder of the Profound Sky sect specialized in. That elder's temperament was thin and cold, and he did not fit in with the elders of the Profound Sky sect. He had always been a different kind of person. Not only did that elder use incomparably vicious kung fu, he was also the most vengeful of them all. With Xiang Nan's identity in his previous life, he still had to address the sinister elder as martial uncle. Ah, no wonder Yuziheo has the Four Directions demon refining cauldron. Xiang Nan's heart skipped a beat. That elder's surname was Yu, and Yuziheo's surname was also Yu. Could it be that Yuziheo was the direct relative of that sinister elder? Pooh! At this moment, the dream butterfly suddenly spat out another mouthful of blood, and its entire body collapsed softly. Xiang Nan hurriedly supported her, her heart cold. The green fire poison of the Four Directions demon refining cauldron had one of the most troublesome characteristics, and that was that the martial arts strength of the poisoned person would be suppressed immediately, making the poisoned person look like a mortal, so that he would not be able to heal himself. Outsiders helping poisoned people heal their injuries usually needed the poisoned person to adjust his body and work hard with outsiders to achieve better results. At this moment, Xiang Nan was treating Dream Butterfly's injuries from one direction. The effect was already very poor. In addition, Dream Butterfly's entire body was suppressed by the poison, making it impossible for Xiang Nan's Yuan Qi to even pass through Dream Butterfly's meridians. In other words, if Xiang Nan injected 100% of Dream Butterfly's Yuan Qi, 99% of it would be wasted. Xiang Nan saw that Dream Butterfly's Qi was like a gossamer and was on the verge of death. He hurriedly took out a bowl and put Dream Butterfly's blood into the bowl. Then, he put his own blood into the bowl and activated it with his Yuan Qi. He saw that the two types of blood had successfully merged into one body and were not dispersed by the Yuan Qi. Great, our blood matches. Xiang Nan quickly cut open his wrist and butted the wound together, forcing his blood into the Dream Butterfly's body with his Yuan Qi. This was another tricky part of the green fire poison, hematopoiesis. Blood loss was a common occurrence for martial artists. After losing a large amount of blood, their powerful bodies would also regenerate blood at an astonishing rate. However, if an ordinary person lost too much blood, he would definitely die. Dream Butterfly was currently facing this kind of danger. She had already vomited too much blood. Even if she wasn't poisoned to death, she would still lose blood and die. At this moment, Xiang Nan used his left hand to continuously deliver blood to the Dream Butterfly, while his right hand pressed against the back of the Dream Butterfly, sending Yuan Qi into the Dream Butterfly's body regardless of the cost. This consumption was extremely terrifying. In less than an hour, Dream Butterfly vomited more than a dozen more times, and Xiang Nan's face became even paler. Another hour passed. At this moment, Xiang Nan and Dream Butterfly were already sitting in a green blood pool. All of that blood was vomited by Dream Butterfly. The amount of blood had already gathered into a puddle. Xiang Nan searched through the storage ring. There was no longer any rejuvenation pill left, so he grabbed a large handful of spirit herbs and stuffed them into his mouth. As he chewed, he continued to transfuse blood. I can't give up. I absolutely can't give up. I won't let you die. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth, allowing the bitter spiritual herb juice to flow down his throat. In another hour, Xiang Nan's lips began to turn pale, but he didn't care about his own situation at all. The dream butterfly let out a loud whoosh and began to vomit blood again. Looking at this scene, Xiang Nan's heart twisted like a knife. He felt both heartache and self-blame. He wished he could take the place of dream butterfly to endure this kind of pain. The long day passed and the silent night arrived. To Xiang Nan, this day was like a year. By the end of the moon, the frequency of the dream butterfly vomiting blood finally slowed down, and she weakly opened her eyes. Who, am I still, alive? Dream butterfly struggled to turn around and looked at Xiang Nan. Originally, she was in a state of imminent death, but the moment she saw Xiang Nan, she smiled like a flower. Don't talk. Have a good rest. Xiang Nan took a deep breath. His yuan qi was still being transported, and his yuan qi was almost exhausted. He took out an intermediate-grade spirit stone and placed it on his leg to absorb the spirit qi provided by the spirit stone. Good brother, almost all of the yuan qi you gave me has flowed out. Meng Dai said while panting. I know. Xiang Nan's eyes were firm, and he did not give up because of this. Tell me, are the two of us hitting each other? Meng Dai took a few deep breaths and said with difficulty. When Xiang Nan heard this, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. Yeah, the second time I saw you, you went crazy and almost died in the snow. I managed to save you with great difficulty. I was almost killed by the backlash of the sun. I was sent back to the nature sect by you before I managed to save my life. This time, in order to save me, you were poisoned by the green fire again. Meng Dai giggled. In other words, we are natural enemies. Xiang Nan was speechless and said, since when are you laughing? Big brother, I'm so cold, hug me. Meng Dai said. Xiang Nan frowned, but still hugged her from behind. No, I want a hug. Meng Dai pouted. Xiang Nan said, what are you hugging? You're almost dead. Meng Dai refused to obey and said coquettishly, in order to save you, I'm almost dead. If you still refuse to hug me, perhaps I won't be able to see the sun tomorrow. Xiang Nan's heart ached. He pulled her over and hugged her in his arms. His right hand circled around her and continued to send yuan qi to her back. Good brother, you are so kind to me. If you can keep doing this. Just as Meng Dai was saying this, her body suddenly trembled and she lay on Xiang Nan's shoulder and began to vomit blood. Strands of blood with a strange and sweet smell spilled on Xiang Nan's entire back. Xiang Nan's nose was sour and his eyes were red. He patted Dream Butterfly's back with his left hand and said, don't be afraid. With me here, I will take good care of you. The dream butterfly vomited for more than 10 minutes before stopping. However, it lost too much blood and fainted. Xiang Nan sliced open his left wrist and sent her blood again. He muttered, you ended up like this in order to save me. If I can't save you, I'll kill myself and accompany you. You won't be alone on the Yellow Springs Road. It was a long night. The dream butterfly had fainted and woken up, waking up and fainting more than 100 times. Every time he woke up and vomited blood, he would vomit until he fainted again, causing Xiang Nan's heart to ache fiercely for a while. The only thing worth celebrating was that the restoration effect of the 9 Purities Cosmos skill had never disappointed Xiang Nan. Even though he had consumed so much yuan qi for the dream butterfly, he had managed to survive by eating spiritual herbs and adding the 9 Purities Cosmos skill. By the time the first ray of sunlight filled the ground, Xiang Nan was so tired that he almost couldn't open his eyes. He felt as if his entire body was filled with lead. However, at this moment, the dense jungle in front of him suddenly shook. Then, a man dressed in white walked out. When the man saw Xiang Nan and Dream Butterfly, and then looked at the blood on the ground, he smiled and said, "There is no place to find after stepping through the iron shoes. Xiang Nan, let's see where you can escape to this time." Chapter 388 Wisdom Do. Xiang Nan did not know this person, but judging from the Yuan Qi fluctuations in his body, he was definitely a disciple of the Profound Sky sect. Moreover, this person had a 6th level Xiantian realm, 1 level higher than Yuziheo. The white-clothed man first vigilantly put on a defensive posture, but when he saw Xiang Nan and Dream Butterfly's situation and discovered the green blood on the ground, he relaxed and said, "Looks like you really killed junior brother Ziheo. However, it really surprised me that you were able to let this woman live to this point. Xiang Nan, be tactful. Give me the incantation of the Great Freedom Scripture so I can give you a good time. Otherwise, even if I don't kill you, Elder Yu of the Profound Sky sect won't let you off. Trust me, you won't be willing to fall into his hands." Xiang Nan was extremely anxious. He was sending Yuan Qi to Dream Butterfly, so there was no way to deal with the white-clothed man from the Profound Sky sect. "Good brother, you, run alone, don't worry about me anymore." Dream Butterfly woke up and persuaded weakly. Seeing that Meng Dai was awake, Xiang Nan heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Wait for me for a moment. Wait for me to deal with this person before continuing to treat your injuries." Xiang Nan released his right hand and grabbed the giant saber as he stood up. However, when he got up this time, his body slightly shook. "Huh, you still want to deal with me?" The white-clothed man looked up and laughed, "Look at how weak you are. You're really shameless. This is also good. I'll beat you half to death first, and then bring you back to the 9 firmaments continent to slowly force you to ask." As he spoke, the man held the sword in his hand and rushed towards Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan's body was weak. He could not fight with him, nor did he want to waste more Yuan Qi on him. He only wanted to save Dream Butterfly with Yuan Qi. The moment he made his move, he immediately used the phaseless tribulation finger. A 10-meter-tall Buddha phantom appeared. Xiang Nan pointed out and a black finger directly hit the disciple of the Heavenly Profound Sect. Ah! When the black sect disciple was hit by a finger, his cultivation realm immediately dropped to the 5th level of origin return. He was shocked. What kind of finger power is this? Could this be the legendary tribulation finger? The man did not dare to attack Xiang Nan head-on. He was afraid that he would be struck by another finger and move around Xiang Nan quickly. He used a very wonderful movement technique. Not only was his speed extremely fast, there were 3 complete figures dragging behind him. What was even more amazing was that the exchange between the man's true body and the 3 figures made it very difficult for Xiang Nan to find out who was real and who was fake. Xiang Nan's body shook and he immediately formed a seal with his hands. He spat out a mouthful of Yuan Qi and released the Lightning King seal. A huge ball of lightning rolled out, rapidly expanding to a diameter of 20 meters. The ball of lightning directly enveloped the man and the 3 shadows, causing their speed to drop and the 3 shadows to disappear at the same time. Xiang Nan flipped his right hand and pointed at the man with another wave of tribulation-free instructions. It just happened to hit the man, causing the man's realm to drop to the 4th level of origin return. At this moment, Xiang Nan's cultivation was already at the early stage of the 3rd level of origin return. Following that, Xiang Nan took advantage of the victory to chase after him. He pointed out his 3rd finger and a black finger force pierced through the man's body. Ah! My realm! The man was shocked. He had already reached the third level of the origin return stage, while Xiang Nan was at the middle stage of the second level of the origin return stage. The man's stalemate had already expired. He hurriedly fled, but he was unable to use the mysterious movement technique after he had dropped 3 levels. There were no 3 figures behind him. Xiang Nan stepped forward and pointed with his right hand. The black finger 4 struck the man, followed by another step and another finger. 2 consecutive fingers pointed at the man to the first level of the origin realm, while Xiang Nan was at the middle level of the first level of the origin realm. You. The man's eyes were red with anger as he threw his sword at Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan was so weak that he almost couldn't stand firm, but if he barely dodged, this sword would pierce through the dream butterfly. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth and pointed at the sword with his finger. The sword suddenly froze in mid-air, and then Peng's voice turned into ashes that filled the sky. My Earth-grade elementary-grade spirit snow sword. The man shouted. Xiang Nan was already at the middle Xiantian 9th layer. He wanted to chase after the phaseless tribulation finger, but he found that he could no longer release it. It turned out that the phaseless tribulation finger was activated with Yuan Qi. After Xiang Nan retreated to the Xiantian realm, he could no longer use Yuan Qi. The man was still at the first level of the origin realm. He laughed loudly. Originally, your realm had already surpassed mine, but you had to worry about that woman's life. You wasted a finger. This time, I'll see what else you can do. Xiang Nan smiled coldly. His hands unsealed and his right fingers joined together. He suddenly drew down. A bolt of lightning descended from the sky. The falling lightning hacked into the man's head and pierced through his crotch. The man's body remained motionless and was chopped into charcoal by the falling lightning. Xiang Nan heaved a long sigh of relief. He had used the power of lightning to kill a first-level origin reversion martial artist, so it was easy for him to do so. Ha 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 ha. Good. Really good. So this is the famous phaseless tribulation finger, truly eye-opening. Suddenly, a sharp laugh came from above. Xiang Nan's heart sank and he looked up into the sky. However, he saw a person wearing a black cloak floating up and down in the sky. That person's realm was extremely high, and he actually possessed a powerful realm at the 5th level of the heavenly Yuan realm. Xiang Nan hurriedly took 2 steps back and saw the man unfurl his cloak and descend from the sky, landing in front of him. This person looked to be around 30 years old, with 3 black goatee. If I hadn't heard the 2 of you talking just now, I wouldn't have known that such a strange finger technique was the heaven-shaking tribulation-free finger. The man cupped his fists at Xiang Nan. None of your business. Xiang Nan narrowed his eyes and quietly took 2 more steps back. However, he did not defend himself. Instead, he placed his right hand on Dream Butterfly's back. The weather started to flow into the Dream Butterfly's body. That person was very curious and asked Xiang Nan, what is the relationship between this little friend and Feiyin Temple? Why are they willing to teach you the tribulation-free finger? Xiang Nan saw this person's eyes flicker. Obviously, he was not a good person. The reason why he hadn't attacked him was probably because he was afraid of Feiyin Temple. Xiang Nan said, Tingjing is my senior uncle. What? The man's expression suddenly changed, but then he angrily said, what nonsense. Tingjing is the head of the Flying Dragon Institute, and his seniority is so high. How could he be the senior uncle of a brat like you? You want to lie to me? Xiang Nan did not mention his identity as the Nature Sect, because the Nature Sect had a long way to go, so it did not have much deterrence to the martial artists of the western regions. But in the western regions, Feiyin Temple was in existence with a notorious reputation. Furthermore, Xiang Nan did not lie. He should indeed call Tingjing martial uncle. "Brat, you're trying to scare me in the name of senior monk Tingjing." Xiang Nan said, "Why not? Tinkong is my master, and Tingjing is naturally my uncle." "Soar into the sky." "Who is it?" The man was stunned for a moment, but he had no impression of the word soaring in his mind. Chapter 389 Dong Wushang. The ranking of the martial arts world had always been chaotic, so everyone didn't care too much about seniority. For example, Zhang Haoran was the second head of the Haoran sect. In terms of seniority, he was Su Caiyue's master. As for Zhang Haoran, he was on par with the senior monks of the Ting generation. Actually, Xiang Nan should call him Grand Master Tingjing. However, Xiang Nan joined Zhang Haoran and became Tingjing's martial nephew. It was mainly because the martial artists had lived for too long that their seniority was particularly chaotic. The man rolled his eyes. He was still doubtful of Xiang Nan's words. He was also puzzled. Perhaps what Xiang Nan said was true. Otherwise, how could this brat Xiang Nan learn such a martial skill like the tribulation-free finger? However, the man thought for a moment and laughed. "Even if you really are Tingjing's martial nephew, it doesn't matter. I'll kill you here without anyone noticing. I'm sure that Tingjing won't suspect me. You and I have no grievances, why did you kill me?" Xiang Nanqi said. The goatee said, "Killing you isn't necessarily killing you right now. You have to tell me the incantation of the finger of tribulation. Perhaps I will kindly let you live." "That can't be." Xiang Nan shook his head. He was deliberately stalling for time. Taking advantage of this time, Xiang Nan's cultivation had already recovered from the 9th level of the Xiantian realm to the 1st level of the Origin Reversion realm. "That's not up to you." The goatee's body trembled and surging yuan qi spread out. It turned into a huge yuan qi palm in the sky and was about to capture Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan took a step back, his fingers clasped together, and a 10-meter-long Buddha standing phantom appeared. The goatee was so frightened that he hurriedly fled. With a whoosh, his body turned into a black shadow and swiftly swam through the forest. Xiang Nan said, "If you want to kill me, you only need to use one move. However, if I point at you with all my might, you will also lose your cultivation realm. Killing me won't do you any good, but you can't afford to lose a realm." Apart from the Feiyin Temple and the Profound Sky sect, no one else knew the true power of the tribulation-free finger. The goatee was truly afraid and did not dare to show itself easily. Xiang Nan had his yuan qi and began to send it to the dream butterfly. The goatee kept swimming in the woods, but when he saw that Xiang Nan was no longer attacking, he stopped and said, "Little friend, we have something to discuss. Why do we have to make a scene of mutual destruction? I think your little lover is poisoned. How about resting in my mansion? I have countless miraculous medicines there." Xiang Nan thought for a moment and agreed. No matter how bad the situation was, could it be worse than now? The goatee was overjoyed and hurriedly said, "I am Dong Wushang, nicknamed Heavenly Fiend Black Forest. Junior Xiang Bei." Xiang Nan said, "Please." The goatee released a strand of yuan qi, sweeping Xiang Nan and Dream Butterfly into the sky. While flying in the sky, Dong Wushang comforted Xiang Nan and said, "Little friend Xiang, please rest assured. I will not plot against you. I will not obtain the incantation of the tribulation finger even if I kill you. However, I have something to ask of you. Let's talk slowly after we return. Dong Wushang's mansion was further west, and he had already reached the hinterland of the western regions, in a boundless black forest. After landing on the ground, Xiang Nan looked around and said, I didn't expect that there would be such a paradise in this kind of place. Senior Dong is very elegant. Dong Wushang laughed loudly and said, It's our guest. Please come in. The garden of Dong Wushang's mansion was unique. There were 3 floors of courtyards in front and behind. There were servants with shackles on their feet everywhere. When these people saw Dong Wushang, their entire bodies trembled in fear. However, the buildings here were very complicated. Xiang Nan peeked at them with his lightning-like eyes and discovered that there were actually 7 formations hidden in the entire mansion. If someone who was not proficient in formations trespassed without permission, the result would probably be very miserable. Dong Wushang brought Xiang Nan to a huge building, and a large hall was facing him. There were 2 rows of seats in the hall. There were already about 20 young people sitting on the chairs on both sides of the hall. Each of them was at the 4th and 5th level of origin return. They were around 20 years old. Having such a high level of talent at such a young age could be considered to be extremely talented. However, these people were all tied up in chairs. When they saw Dong Wushang return, their faces revealed anger. Little friend Xiang, please take a seat. Dong Wushang led Xiang Nan directly to the front seat. After Dong Wushang landed on the main seat, he said to the young martial artists, How is it? Do you understand? Do you want to hand over the Devil Seed token or not? The young martial artists were furious and cursed. Dong Wushang laughed, Don't think that you can deceive me. One of you must have the Devil Seed token. Tell me where the Devil Seed token is hidden, and I'll release all of you. Otherwise, hee. Cut the crap. A young martial artist said angrily, If I give you the Devil Seed token, will you be willing to let us go? Do you really think we are idiots? Dong Wushang jumped up like a rock. He floated away, and his right nail suddenly became extremely sharp, piercing through the young martial artist's head. The martial artist's entire body spasmed, and he was sucked into a dried corpse at a speed visible to the naked eye. As for Dong Wushang, he flipped his palm, and a ball of green light was floating in his palm. The ball of light was full of vitality, and it actually pulled out the vitality of the young martial artist. Seeing this, Xiang Nan's heart sank. Just what kind of evil path was this Dong Wushang practicing? The cultivation method he practiced was actually so vicious. When the others saw this scene, their faces turned pale with fear. Little friend Xiang, your little lover is in a bad situation. This light of life will be given to you as a greeting gift. After your little lover swallows it, it will benefit you endlessly, Dong Wushang said with a smile. Xiang Nan was indeed moved, but when he thought of the origin of the light of life, he shook his head and refused, Thank you, senior, for your kindness, but let's forget it. Dong Wushang sneered and snorted, You don't want this. Lin. Come. As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of walking came from the screen behind the hall. Then, a handsome and extraordinary man turned out. This person was tall and handsome, but his face was extremely pale. He looked like a sick man and could die at any moment. Father! The man shouted. A gentle light flashed through Dong Wushang's eyes and he said, Good child, eat quickly. The man took the light of life and used his mouth to suck the green ball of light into his mouth. Then, a flush appeared on his pale and brightening face. Lin, let me introduce you. Dong Wushang pointed at Xiang Nan and said, This is a good friend invited from my father. He is the martial nephew of Elder Tingjing, the host of Fei Long Yuan. Oh. The man was slightly shocked, but he looked a little afraid. However, he still cupped his fists at Xiang Nan and said, "Brother Xiang." Xiang Nan nodded, "Brother Dong." Ha 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 ha. On both sides of the seats, a young martial artist laughed loudly. The disciples of the secular sects of the dignified Feiyin Temple actually mixed up with the heavenly fiend of the Black Forest. They are truly laughing to death. Chapter 390 Dong Mansion. How dare you? Dong Wushang shouted to the young martial artist, to actually speak to my guest like this. If it weren't for the fact that my son had just swallowed a light of life, I would have killed you now. Xiang Nan frowned. It seemed that Dong Wushang had captured the young martial artists. Dong Wushang pointed at Meng Dai, but didn't know her name. "Lin Lin, go and bring out some of the miraculous medicines in our mansion and give them to this dream butterfly," Xiang Nan said. Dong Lin turned around and left. Later, he came back with a tray. Dong Wushang lifted the white cloth from the tray. There were 2 pill bottles and a dark purple Ganoderma lucidum on it. Dong Wushang said, "This Lingji is a natural spirit item. It has grown for 10,000 years, but it is a priceless treasure. And these 2 bottles of pills are even more amazing. This bottle is called the 5 Purities Profound Pill. It is a Tier 4 healing pill, while the other bottle is called the Life Extension Pill. It is also a Tier 4 pill." Xiang Nan took it, pulled out the stopper of the pill bottle and sniffed it. He then glanced at it with his lightning-like eyes and found that he did not make any move. Only then did he feed the 2 pills to Dream Butterfly. "Lin Lin, take this 10,000-year-old purple spirit Ganoderma and make some medicine for Miss Meng Dai to drink later." Dong Wushang greeted. Dong Lin answered. Xiang Nan sat cross-legged and continued to treat Dream Butterfly's injuries. Everyone on the scene looked at Xiang Nan quietly. Dong Wushang was also sizing it up, as if he was observing Xiang Nan's strength. The rich power of the 9 Purities Cosmos skill entered the Dream Butterfly's body, forcing the poison out of her body. The green fire poison was incomparably tenacious, as if it had the ability to regenerate. Xiang Nan was always healing the Dream Butterfly, but he was still unable to force out all of the poison. At this moment, the green patterns on Dream Butterfly's body slowed down slightly. She spat out a large mouthful of blood. The blood landed on the white jade floor, and it actually corroded the white jade floor. That floor was quickly corroded into green, and then spread to other territories. In less than 10 minutes, the entire white jade floor in the hall had turned into jade. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. Dong Wushang stood up abruptly and said in shock, "There is actually such a strange poison in the world. Little friend Xiang is even more amazing. He can actually use his Yuan Qi to extend Miss Meng Dai's life to this point. Even I, Dong, am unable to do such a thing." As Dong Wu was sad, he valued Xiang Nan more. While Xiang Nan was healing Dream Butterfly, he said, "Senior Dong said that he had something to ask for. I wonder what it is." Dong Wushang suddenly stretched out his right hand and used his Yuan Qi to pull Dream Butterfly over. Xiang Nan was caught off guard and failed to catch Dream Butterfly. Seeing that Dong Wushang had caught Dream Butterfly beside him, he angrily said, "What are you doing?" Dong Wushang smiled and said, "Little friend Xiang, don't worry. I saw that Miss Meng Dai's situation is not good, so I wanted to help you. There's a pond of medicine in my backyard. It's good for Miss Meng Dai to soak in it. Someone, send Miss Meng Dai to the medicine pond." Xiang Nan knew that Dong Wushang was using Dream Butterfly as a hostage, but at this moment, there was nothing else he could do, so he could only endure a mouthful of anger. Dong Wushang said, "I have an enemy who wants to come to me today, and I will have to rely on little friend Xiang to help me. After killing him, I will wholeheartedly help little friend Xiang treat Miss Meng Dai's injuries. The Demon Sea will open in 7 days. At that time, I will give you 2 more Devil Sea tokens. You and I will enter the Demon Sea together. Isn't that wonderful?" Xiang Nan said, "I can't even defeat someone you can't even defeat." Dong Wushang shook his head, "Hey, you can't say that. Little friend Xiang's unparalleled tribulation finger is unparalleled in the world. When I fight against my enemy, you only need to point at him twice. I naturally have a way to kill him." "Alright, but I want to see Dream Butterfly," Xiang Nan said. When Dong Wushang saw Xiang Nan agree, his face was filled with joy. "That's not a problem. Let's go." As he spoke, Dong Wushang took Xiang Nan to the backyard. As for the young martial artists in the hall, look at me and look at you, all of them with blank expressions. What kind of kung fu is the phaseless tribulation finger? Even Dong Wushang has to pray for it. I don't know, maybe it's the finger technique of the Flying Cloud Temple. But I only heard that the Duo Luo Yi finger and Mo Ko finger of the Feiyin Temple are extremely powerful. I've never heard of the phaseless tribulation finger. The backyard. Just as Dong Wushang had said, there was indeed a medicinal pond here. The water in the medicinal pond was translucent, and it had a gemstone-like luster. As the Dream Butterfly was soaking inside, traces of blood continuously drifted out of its body. It really works. Xiang Nan was overjoyed. That Dong Wushang said, "I promised little friend Xiang, so I naturally won't speak bluntly. Little friend Xiang, just stay here. I will call you when the time comes." After Dong Wushang left with Dong Lin, Xiang Nan hurriedly sat by the pool and whispered the name of Dream Butterfly. Dream Butterfly slowly opened her eyes and said, "Good brother, I feel much more comfortable." Hearing this, Xiang Nan heaved a sigh of relief. "That's good. Continue soaking. I'll guard you." At night, the entire mansion was terrifyingly quiet. Everything here was so strange. There were even a few strange plants that had come to life in the back garden. Those plants had enormous black flowers. After the flowers bloomed, there was actually a ring of sharp teeth inside. These strange flowers were like snakes, swishing and swallowing moths in the night sky, chewing until they sounded like a pu-pu. Xiang Nan frowned. "This place is very strange. We can't stay here for long." Meng Dai said, "I think that Dong Wushang's mansion must have hidden a good treasure. Why don't we go check it out?" Xiang Nan said, "Let's not meddle in other people's affairs. I brought you here to find some miraculous medicine to treat your injuries. After you recover a little, I'll take you away. Maybe there are better pills hidden in his mansion. Look at that Dong Wushang's son. He must have plundered a lot of spiritual herbs for his son." This sentence moved Xiang Nan. In any case, Dong Wushang was not a good guy. However, he did not dare to leave Meng Dai here. If his actions were exposed and he was afraid that Dong Wushang would come to cause trouble for Meng Dai, he would take Meng Dai with him. There are many buildings in this mansion, and their styles are different. Xiang Nan said, "During the day, I saw that there were 7 formations hidden here. Each one was more powerful than the other, and each one was more vicious than the other. There must be something good hidden in the building above the strongest formation." Meng Dai covered her mouth with a wicked smile. Xiang Nan was speechless. As she channeled her yuan qi, she carefully circled around the garden and walked towards an exotic spire. The building was covered in an array formation. This array formation was very complex. Xiang Nan swept his gaze through the array with lightning. He saw that the array had 25 array eyes and contained flame power. If he touched the array, he would definitely have a fire avatar. As long as the array didn't stop, he would definitely be burned to death. Xiang Nan thought for a moment and poured a wisp of yuan qi into the formation's veins with his 2 fingers, covering 3 of the formation eyes. "Let's go." As he spoke, he helped Dream Butterfly step in. Chapter 391 Steel Pills. The building looked very big from the outside, but the furnishings inside were very simple. There were only some calligraphy, paintings, and cultural objects hanging on it. Something's wrong. Dream Butterfly pondered. Dong Wushang used such a powerful formation to protect this place, but only to protect this property. There must be a hidden door. Xiang Nan looked at it again with his lightning-like eyes. Sure enough, the painting on the opposite wall was empty. Opening the calligraphy in painting, there was a corridor that tilted downwards. Xiang Nan and Dream Butterfly exchanged a glance, then held their breath, suppressed the fluctuations of yuan qi, and quietly walked down. The Dream Butterfly was extremely weak. There was no problem even without suppressing yuan qi fluctuations. On the other hand, Xiang Nan used the 9 Purities Cosmos skill to increase the resistance of the 5 elements to the maximum. Thus, it would be better integrated into the invisible attributes and wouldn't produce too much yuan qi fluctuations. "Good brother, I'll teach you a technique to conceal fluctuations. Remember it well." Dream Butterfly whispered in Xiang Nan's ears. Xiang Nan nodded and circulated according to the incantation. Sure enough, his yuan qi fluctuations instantly dropped to the lowest. Unless someone was intentionally trying to perceive Xiang Nan, it would be very difficult to detect him. The 2 of them walked to the bottom and pushed open a door to enter. They discovered that it was a secret room. This secret room was magnificently decorated with several large beds. There's a wooden shelf there. Xiang Nan supported Dream Butterfly and hurriedly walked over. The east wall was leaning against a row of wooden shelves. There were all kinds of medicinal pills placed on the shelves, but most of them were of the 2nd or 3rd grade. Dream Butterfly thought for a moment and gently pushed the wooden rack. The wooden rack actually turned around with a creak. He presented the back to the 2 of them. On the other hand, there was actually a hidden wooden rack on the back. The medicinal pills above were amazing. All of them were at the 4th stage, and the strongest were at the 5th stage. Xiang Nan was overjoyed and hurriedly searched according to the name of the pill. Tier 5 Life Continuing Pill. I didn't expect old thief Dong to have such an expensive pill. Xiang Nan was extremely happy. He immediately poured out 3 jade green pills from the bottle, allowing Dream Butterfly to swallow one. At this time, footsteps suddenly came from the corridor outside. Xiang Nan hurriedly pushed the wooden rack back, but looking around, he found that there was no hiding place here. Under the bed, Meng Dai said. The 2 of them hurriedly drilled into the ground of a large bed and looked out through the narrow cracks. A voice came from outside. "Father, is that kid surnamed Xiang really a disciple of the secular clan of the Feiyin Temple?" It was Dong Lin's voice. "And, most likely it's true. I've seen him use the tribulation-free finger before." This was Dong Wushang's voice. "Since that's the case, then why did you bring him back? Why didn't you kill him with one palm?" If the Flying Cloud Temple finds out about this, then you and I will have nowhere to go. Don't worry, I have my own plans. At present, I still need to borrow Xiang's tribulation-free finger. After this matter is over, I will force out the incantation of the tribulation-free finger. He will not escape with a heavily injured woman. At this point, Dong Wushang and his son had already entered the secret room, but behind the two of them, there were 7 naked women tied with ropes. The 7 women were as beautiful as flowers, all of them at the first and second level of origin return. Strangely, their eyes were blurry, and the corners of their mouths were dripping with sticky saliva. Alright, it's full moon night again. Have you learned all of your kung fu for father? Dong Wushang looked at his son affectionately. Dong Lin nodded, already. Alright, Lin, your father only has one son. Don't worry, no matter what, I will help you open your 2 meridians. Yes. Dong Lin nodded heavily. Opening 2 meridians. Xiang Nan and Dream Butterfly exchanged glances. A martial artist's innate talent was generally divided into 5 meridians, and they were born with penetration. If one's innate meridians were blocked, it would be the absolute meridians. Normally, this kind of person would not live long and would die in their teens. Hearing Dong Wushang's words, Dong Lin actually had 2 meridians, and they were all blocked. It was a miracle that he was able to survive until now. Dong Wushang patted Dong Lin on the shoulder and left on his own. As for Dong Lin, he let out a sinister laugh and pulled the 7 naked women onto the big bed, which was exactly where Xiang Nan and the other 2 were hiding. After a while, the big bed started to shake, accompanied by the woman's ups and downs. You don't have to look to know what they're doing up there. Xiang Nan felt extremely embarrassed, while Dream Butterfly kept her head lowered, not daring to look at Xiang Nan. Unfortunately, Dong Lin's kung fu was amazing. He had been tossing and turning in bed for more than 2 hours and hadn't stopped yet. What was even stranger was that a strange fragrance gradually permeated the entire room. Xiang Nan felt that his entire body was extremely hot and dry, and he didn't dare to use the 9 Purities Cosmos skill to resist the fragrance, fearing that Dong Lin would discover it. As for Dream Butterfly, her eyes were filled with spring as she grabbed onto Xiang Nan's arm forcefully. Her pair of big eyes were hazy with water vapor, as if they were about to drip out. Good brother. Dream Butterfly squeezed towards Xiang Nan and whispered in Xiang Nan's ear. Don't move. Xiang Nan grabbed Dream Butterfly's hand and tried his best to restrain his impulse. Another hour passed before Dong Lin let out a long sigh of relief. He walked out of the bed barefoot and chopped a coat before leaving. Xiang Nan heaved a long sigh of relief and pulled Dream Butterfly out. The 2 of them looked at the bed and their hearts instantly trembled. The 7 women had already turned into charcoal and were lying on the bed in a mess, as if they had been burned by a blazing fire. Dream Butterfly gently patted the sheets and the 7 corpses instantly turned into ashes. What a vicious technique! Xiang Nan clenched his fists. If he knew that Dong Wushang was trying to kill the 7 women, he would have already attacked when he was hiding under the bed. This seems to be a technique for harvesting yin and tonifying yang. It's very exquisite. Dream Butterfly didn't think much of it. She was originally a member of the Heavenly Devil religion. It was not like she had never seen a method that was even more evil and vicious than this. The 2 of them pushed the wooden shelf over again and searched it carefully. Unfortunately, although these pills were of a very high level, they were all used to heal and sustain their lives. They didn't even have any pills that could increase their strength. Xiang Nan didn't dare to take too much and only put away 3 bottles of tier 5 pills. dream butterfly took out 2 small bottles and smiled wickedly. I have a few chronic poison pills here. Put them in those 3 empty bottles and let Dong Lin eat them. It's better to die than live. Xiang Nan was unwilling to use such a method to hurt people, but when he thought of the viciousness of the Dong clan's father and son, he gritted his teeth and put all the poison pills into the bottle. Hurry up and leave. This place is not suitable for you to stay for long. Xiang Nan supported Dream Butterfly and quietly returned to the back garden. When the Dream Butterfly soaked in the medicinal pond again, Xiang Nan took out a 5th grade life continuing pill and fed it to the Dream Butterfly to swallow. At this moment, a loud shout suddenly came to mind in the hall of the front yard. Old thief Wu Shang! You stole my tier 5 life continuing pill, get out of here. Xiang Nan and Meng Dai exchanged a glance and asked in shock, that Dong Wu Shang's enemy came here so quickly. Chapter 392 Undercurrent Surge. Hey, good brother, let them fight on their own. We have the pills in our hands, hurry up and leave. Meng Dai laughed wickedly. Xiang Nan thought for a moment and waved his hand. He gathered all the medicinal liquid in the pond into a huge water ball, and then put it into his storage ring. He hugged the Dream Butterfly and flew away like a streak of black lightning. This lightning escape was 100 miles away. After landing on the ground, Xiang Nan was dizzy. After resting for a while, he unfurled his Yuan Qi feathered wings and continued to fly wildly with the Dream Butterfly. This place was too close to Dong Wu Shang's mansion, so the danger was still great. During this process, Xiang Nan continued to send Yuan Qi to the Dream Butterfly. The effects of the 5th grade life continuing pill were indeed astonishing. Dream Butterfly ate 2 of them before and after. Although the green fire poison had not been dispelled, her spirits were much better. Where is your master? I'll hand you over to her. She will definitely save your life. Xiang Nan said. Meng Dai pouted and said, my master is not in Blue Tide Continent. You can't find her. Xiang Nan sighed. It was strange that Dream Butterfly's identity was too special. She could not bring her back to the Haran sect, nor could she bring her back to the Flying Cloud Temple because she was from her daughter's family. Otherwise, let's go to the Devil Sea. Meng Dai said, I heard that there are endless treasures in the Devil Sea. Perhaps there are some heavenly treasures that can save my life. Yes, that's the only way. Xiang Nan nodded and wiped a storage ring from his chest. This storage ring was sent flying when he killed Yuziheo that day, and was conveniently plundered by him. There were a few Flying Cloud Temple cultivation methods and a Devil Sea token hidden within the storage ring, and there was nothing else. Those cultivation techniques were Duoluo Yeji, Mo Ko-pointed, and Prajna Palm's Heart Technique mantra. They should have been copied by Yuziheo after he left Feiyin Temple. However, Xiang Nan didn't understand the incantation of the tribulation-free finger. He didn't know that the incantation Yuziheo had told Song Mingqing was fake, and he didn't dare to write down the incantation as evidence. However, this way, there would be 2 Devil Sea tokens that could bring Dream Butterfly into the Demon Sea. He took out Yuziheo's Devil Sea token and handed it to Meng Dai. Meng Dai pointed the token in all 4 directions. When she discovered that the token pointed to the west, the light on the token was the strongest. Good brother, let's go to the west. I heard from Dong Wu Shang that the Devil Sea will open in 7 days. Yes. Xiang Nan pulled the Dream Butterfly all the way west. The Black Forest was vast and boundless. It flew 3,000 li in a row, but it still couldn't see the boundaries. The demonic beasts had seen quite a few of them. They were all sliced apart by Xiang Nan. Late at night, Xiang Nan fed the last-minute life extension pill to Dream Butterfly. Xiang Nan wasn't stingy with such precious pills. He didn't even frown when he gave 3 to Dream Butterfly to eat. The Dream Butterfly vomited blood 5 more times during that period, but the green fire poison was still difficult to extract. If your meridians are slightly better, then let me know. I'll tell you the 9 purities universe arts formula at the 3rd level. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth and made up his mind to save Dream Butterfly, even willing to take out the 9 purities cosmos skill. Meng Dai smiled sweetly and leaned against Xiang Nan's embrace. She murmured, "Even if Meng Dai dies in the embrace of a good brother, there will be no regrets." Xiang Nan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You're obviously 4 years older than me. You always call me brother. You sound so awkward." The Dream Butterfly Fairy laughed strangely. Instead, she deliberately whispered in Xiang Nan's ears, "Good brother, good brother, good brother." At this time, a sword light suddenly shot into the sky in the forest below. Xiang Nan only cared about talking to Dream Butterfly. He didn't notice any yuan qi fluctuations below, so he quickly dodged. The sword light was extremely sharp and directly rushed into the sky before disappearing. Immediately after, yuan qi shot out one after another. There were sword light, saber light, spear light, and enormous yuan qi palm prints. These attacks were too dense, as if dozens of people were being released at the same time. Xiang Nan was flying in the sky with his yuan qi feathered wings, and he was also hugging the Dream Butterfly, so his movements were very inflexible. Suddenly, a beam of sword light shot up and directly cut off Xiang Nan's yuan qi feathered wings. "Hold on." Xiang Nan hugged the Dream Butterfly and descended from the sky. Pine. Xiang Nan hugged the Dream Butterfly and landed on the ground, stepping out of the dust. He landed in a circle formed by a large group of people. Those people were facing each other with sabers and weapons. No one expected that 2 people would suddenly fall from the sky. For a moment, all the martial artists stopped moving. Xiang Nan was also puzzled. He thought that someone was sneak attacking him. After a long time, there were dozens of martial artists fighting here. He was accidentally injured. Is that Senior Sister Meng Dai? A person suddenly walked out of the crowd and cried out in surprise. "Aya, that's not good." The moment Meng Dai saw that person's face, she hurriedly whispered in Xiang Nan's ear, "It's someone from my holy sect." Xiang Nan whispered, "Isn't that better? Why can't I say that?" "You don't know," said Meng Dai anxiously. "That person's name is Mingyu Yuan. My master and his master have always been at odds with each other in the sacred sect. This time, meeting him will be very troublesome." Mingyu Yuan looked curiously at Xiang Nan and the other 2, and Xiang Nan also looked towards Mingyu Yuan. Furthermore, he discovered that there were more than 35 martial artists here, and their cultivation bases were generally very high, all of them above the 5th level of the Origin Return realm. The weakest 10 people were at the 5th level of Origin Return, 10 at the 6th level of Origin Return, and 15 at the 7th level of Origin Return. Mingyu Yuan was an expert at the 7th level of the Origin realm. The origins of these people are not simple. Meng Dai whispered in Xiang Nan's ear, "Look, there are 5 people from my sacred sect, led by Mingyu Yuan. The others are all from the dark forces. At least 1/3 of them are from the killer sect." Sure enough, Xiang Nan discovered that these people were all experts among experts. Compared to the demon race and human race martial artists who had been deceived by Yuziheo and the martial artists who had been captured in Dong Wushang's mansion, their strength was not on the same level at all. The three people closest to Xiang Nan on the left had gloomy expressions, their heads lowered, and their bodies emitted a dark and fierce aura. The four people on the right had hidden momentum, which made people even more fearful. Judging from the sword light that had cut off Xiang Nan's Yuan Qi feathered wings, it was no small matter. "Senior Sister Meng Dai, what's wrong with you? Poisoned? Seriously injured? Ha ha ha, I didn't expect you to have this day." Mingyu Yuan suddenly laughed sinisterly. "What about me? It's your turn to judge me. It's neither big nor small." Meng Dai scolded coldly. Mingyu Yuan, however, did not care at all and said, "Normally, I am afraid of you, but now you still want to scare me? Haha." On the opposite side, a man covered in a black robe walked out. This man carried a strange black sword on his back. The sword was actually 5 meters long, and the tip of the sword extended high into the sky. Such a sharp sword could be said to be rare. As soon as this person approached Xiang Nan, his aura alone caused Xiang Nan to feel bursts of stinging pain on his face. "You guys," the black-robed man said coldly, "are you here to snatch the 30,000-year-old demon origin fruit as well?" 30,000-year-old demon origin fruit. Xiang Nan's pupils constricted, and he was instantly overjoyed in his heart. The demon origin fruit is a good thing. The effect on a martial artist's cultivation was exceptionally good. Moreover, it could make a martial artist's martial Dao foundation more solid, greatly heal their injuries, and disperse the poison. Back then, Xiang Nan had seen a few thousand-year-old demon origin fruits in the black sharp demon forest. After swallowing one, he quickly broke through to the next realm. Right now, there were 30,000-year-old demon origin fruits here. However, these people were not easy to deal with. Chapter 393 Clash. It was said that there were 30,000-year-old demon origin fruits, but where was the demon origin fruit tree? Xiang Nan looked around anxiously, but he didn't see the existence of the demon origin fruit tree, let alone the demon origin fruit. Whether he could eat it or not was very important. The key was to use the demon origin fruit to save Dream Butterfly's life, and at least snatch one for her. "I'm asking you something. Are you deaf?" The black-robed man said coldly, "Are you here to snatch the demon origin fruit? If not, get lost." Xiang Nan looked at the black-robed man and said indifferently, "You'd better be careful when you speak." The black-robed man sneered, "Brother Mingyu, did you hear that? Your heavenly devil sect is very arrogant. Then don't blame me for not giving you face. Brother Xiao Yuan, your Black Flag sect is a famous sect of assassins. My holy sect naturally values your Black Flag very much." Mingyu Yuan smiled. "However, this woman is indeed from our sacred sect, and this brat is not from our sacred sect. Since you're not from your heavenly devil sect, then I'll kill him. You probably have nothing else to say." The black-robed man suddenly made a move, and with a flash of his body, he arrived in front of Xiang Nan. This person's sleeves swelled, and he attacked extremely quickly. The right hand turned into a black shadow and suddenly grabbed Xiang Nan's throat. Xiang Nan's dragon blood saber was too big and too long. Furthermore, it was carrying the dream butterfly on its back. It was not easy to use large-scale combat movements. Afraid of throwing the dream butterfly away, he gave up using the giant saber and gave it a pointer instead. This finger was the first form of MO pointed, the index finger condensing Yuan Qi. Xiang Nan pointed at the black-robed man's palm. Two strong Yuan Qi collided abruptly. Xiang Nan took half a step back. The flames in the black-robed man's palm exploded and he floated back 3 meters. Mo pointed. The black-robed man lifted his hood, revealing an incomparably cold face. He lowered his head and looked at his palm. There was a burning mark on his palm. If he hadn't condensed his yuan qi in his hand just now and wanted to kill Xiang Nan in one move, his palm would have been crippled. Interesting. The black-robed man's figure flickered, turning into an afterimage before disappearing. The empty space was so quiet that he couldn't hear the black-robed man at all. Xiang Nan tilted his head slightly and sensed the black-robed man's killing intent. "Hold tight," Xiang Nan explained to the dream butterfly and pointed to the left. A fire mark shot out, forcing the black-robed man out of his high-speed movement. Then, Xiang Nan pointed again. His finger speed was extremely fast. Fire marks of finger power crisscrossed and shot towards the black-robed man from all sorts of crafty angles. The black-robed man's strength was also extremely astonishing. His body jumped not far away, dodging and dodging left and right. His footsteps were very strange, and his legs were constantly interlacing, causing him to instantly explode and move for a short distance. This kid is only at the 4th level of origin return, but his strength is so high, can he match up to the Pianfen? Everyone on the side was shocked as they watched the two fight. On the other side, a scholar-like person shook his folding fan and said, "Mo pointed is divided into 3 styles. The index finger is light and sharp. It can be released very quickly. It can continuously release fingers for a period of time. It can cooperate with spiritual fire in battle. It is the most suitable opponent for a battle with a speed type." Opponent. The middle finger is large and exquisite. It is heavy and steady. Its release speed is not good, but its power is stronger than the index finger. It has a slight change. It is more suitable to fight against a balanced martial artist. The thumb is extremely tyrannical and continuous. It is easy to dodge. However, its strong penetration and persistence are most suitable for combat strength type martial artists. Oh. I see. Thank you, Brother 100 Ignorance, for your explanation. The other experts nodded. Xiang Nan slightly tilted his head to look at the scholar, thought to himself that this person's understanding of Mo finger, actually so deep. At this moment, the black-robed man found an opportunity and quickly attacked Xiang Nan. This person's speed was too fast. He suddenly disappeared in the middle of the sprint and appeared behind Xiang Nan. He had a handless blade between his fingers. The length of the blade was similar to that of his palm. It was as thin as a cicada's wing, and its entire body was diamond-shaped. There were sharp blades on both sides of the blade. The black-robed man used a strange martial skill to condense a small black snake on the back of his hand with his yuan qi. The snake spat out a message and then rolled up its diamond-shaped blade and stabbed at the back of Xiang Nan's neck. Although the diamond-shaped blade was so small and exquisite, the strength of this blade was unexpectedly strong. Xiang Nan had already wrapped his left hand around Dream Butterfly's waist and pushed her to the side. His right hand pierced through his cheek and pointed at the black-robed man behind him with his middle finger. The middle finger took a long time to exert its strength, but its power was even more ruthless. A flame finger hit the diamond blade heavily, and it actually pierced through the diamond blade. The black-robed man made a mistake and immediately retreated. At the same time, Xiang Nan turned around and bowed slightly, shooting out a flame mark on his index finger from the bottom up. The black-robed man hurriedly dodged a finger with his right leg too high. As for Xiang Nan, he pointed his finger at the flame mark, pointed his finger sideways, and then jumped into the air, causing 3 consecutive flame marks to appear from top to bottom. The black-robed man was even more miserable. After his sneak attack failed, his rhythm was disrupted. At this moment, he was continuously pursued by Xiang Nan, and he retreated repeatedly. When Xiang Nan forced the black-robed man to retreat with his index finger, he pointed out in one move. A fierce flame of finger power shot out, and the black-robed man hurriedly condensed his Yuan Qi shield to block it. However, this shield was pierced through by a strong finger power, and the remaining finger power instantly pierced through the black-robed man's left shoulder. "Are you alright?" Xiang Nan tilted his head slightly and asked the dream butterfly on his back. Meng Dai said, "It's fine. You don't have to worry about me. Just focus on the enemy." The black-robed man covered his pierced shoulders and shouted coldly, "Who exactly are you?" Xiang Nan thought for a moment and said, "I am from the lower heaven profound sect, Yuziheo." Facing these people, Xiang Nan would not be foolish enough to declare himself. Originally, the martial artists of the western regions were very disgusted with the Haoran sect. In addition, Yuziheo had impersonated Xiang Nan and tricked the martial artists of the western regions. Now, it was even more impossible to mention him. Since Yuziheo can pretend to be my Xiang Nan, why can't I pretend to be him? Ah! The Profound Sky Sect. Everyone was shocked. The Profound Sky Sect was the leader of the 8 great sects of the righteous Tao. Ha! A bastard from the Profound Sky Sect dares to come to our western regions to dominate? The black-robed man sneered, "Our dark forces are always at odds with your righteous sects. Senior Sister Meng Dai, why are you mixed up with the people from the Profound Sky Sect?" Mingyu Yuan smiled faintly and said, "But that's good. I think this junior brother Yu of the Profound Sky Sect is extraordinary. Why don't you join our sacred sect? I'll snatch the demon origin fruit later. Let's split it equally. How about it?" Originally, everyone wanted to get rid of Xiang Nan quickly before continuing to fight for the demon origin fruit, but they didn't expect Xiang Nan to be so powerful. At this moment, Mingyu Yuan had the intention to rope him in. With one more expert on his side, his chances of winning the demon origin fruit would be a little higher. Chapter 394 Substitution Game. Meng Dai whispered in Xiang Nan's ear, "Good big brother, don't listen to him. This person is full of tricks. He is a villain who will lose his face if he says so. Be careful not to be used by him." "How is it?" Mingyu Yuan smiled and waited for Xiang Nan's reply. "Brother Yu, you must consider this carefully." The scholarly-looking man shook his folding fan and said, "Brother Mingyu, we all know what kind of person he is. When he first came to the western regions, he had recruited several experts from the dark forces. But now, those experts have disappeared. You don't need to tell me why. Brother Mingyu has always been the best at crossing rivers and destroying bridges." The scholar spoke so highly of Mingyu Yuan in front of everyone, but not only was Mingyu Yuan not angry, he smiled and cupped his fists, saying, "Where is it? Brother 100 is flattering me." Xiang Nan felt that the scholar's Yuan Qi was relatively positive, possibly from a decent sect. He said, "May I ask who your excellency is?" The scholar clasped his folding fan and said, "I'm from the lower glacier continent, the primordial chaos sect. I call myself 100 Ignorance. Primordial Chaos Sect." Xiang Nan's heart skipped a beat. The Primordial Chaos Sect was one of the 8 great sects, and its sect site was located on the glacier continent. However, this Primordial Chaos Sect had never taken a stand. It was an existence that was both righteous and evil. It was hard to say whether the scholar in front of him was an enemy or a friend. The word "hundred ignorance" was obviously a self-deprecating nickname for the scholar. Actually, he knew more than everyone else. At least, he had a deep understanding of Buddhist profound arts since he was far away in the glacier continent. The scholar shook his folding fan and said, "Originally, our factions fought evenly, but brother you broke the deadlock as soon as he arrived. Whichever side you join is of utmost importance to either side." The scholar smiled as he pointed at Mingyu Yuan and said, "This side is the heavenly demon sect." He then pointed to the black-robed man and said, "These are the dark forces, the killer groups, and the black flag." He pointed to the last group of people and said, "On this side are the dark forces, the bandits, and the scarlet tiger." Xiang Nan nodded silently. The Hunyuan sect, the heavenly demon sect, the black flag, and the red dog were all gathered here. If they wanted to compete for the 30,000-year-old demon origin fruit, it would be very difficult to deal with. The Black Flag was one of the most famous killer groups. Within the entire killer profession, the Black Flag could be ranked in the middle and upper reaches. Many martial arts experts of the Hautian Empire had died at the hands of the Black Flag killer. Red Tiger, on the other hand, relied mainly on open robbery, because they were all crazy and fearless of death. They were given the nickname Red Dog, and they belonged to the upper and middle reaches of the robber industry, slightly surpassing Black Flag. However, at this moment, the number of people in the Black Flag held the advantage, so much so that they could be evenly matched with the other three. None of these people were serious, and none of Xiang Nan wanted to join. "Have you decided which side you want to join?" Mingyu Yuan asked with a smile. "Good brother, join the primordial chaos sect." Dream Butterfly whispered in Xiang Nan's ear, "At least you are one of the 8 great sections. Even if that 100 ignorance harbors evil intentions, he will still agree with you for the time being." "All right." Xiang Nan nodded and said, "Then I'll join Brother 100's team." Bai Wuji cupped his fists and said, "Welcome. With Brother Yu joining us, we have gained a lot of help." The other 3 forces all took a few steps back, feeling that the situation was not good. Xiang Nan carried the Dream Butterfly towards Baiji. Baiji smiled and said, "If Brother Yu does his best to help, then I will naturally see it in my eyes. When we snatch the demon origin fruit, I will definitely give you one." As he spoke, Bai Wuji suddenly pushed Meng Dai on her shoulder, pushing her away. "Ha ha ha ha. Thank you, Brother Bai." Behind him, Mingyu Yuan waved her hand and a strand of Yuan Qi swept the Dream Butterfly to her side. "What are you doing?" Xiang Nan was furious. He did not expect 100 ignorance to suddenly attack. He immediately pointed at 100 ignorance. Bai Wuji hurriedly used a folding fan to block the attack. A sharp blade appeared at the top of each fan bone. He waved the folding fan downwards, cutting off 10 blades at the same time, sending Xiang Nan's finger force flying. Bai Wuji smiled and said, "Brother Yu, why are you angry? I'm helping you. Aren't you dragging down your combat strength by bringing such a woman as a burden? What does a child's sentiment mean? How can it be more precious than the demon origin fruit? Women? There are many women in the world. With Brother Yu's strength, there are as many as you want. Wait for me." Xiang Nan glared at Bai Wuji. His right foot touched the ground and his body suddenly shot backwards. He rushed towards Mingyu Yuan to snatch the Dream Butterfly back. Mingyu Yuan's right hand trembled and a snowy sword fell into his hand. This person was at the 7th level of the Origin Return realm, and his strength was quite astonishing. The long sword trembled. It was actually covered with small black gas snakes. As Mingyu Yuan slashed the long sword toward Xiang Nan, a dozen small black gas snakes immediately flew toward Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan pinched his fingers and tossed them away repeatedly, sending more than a dozen small black gas snakes flying. Those small snakes shot randomly everywhere. Once they pierced through the trees, those trees would instantly be corroded and withered, melting into black water on the ground. What a flower finger! Bai Wuji clapped his hands with a folding fan and couldn't help but praise. Xiang Nan used the invisible finger power of his flower finger to hold on to the dream butterfly, wanting to seize it back. However, Mingyu Yuan grabbed onto Meng Dai's arm, forcing Xiang Nan to release his flower finger. The current dream butterfly was completely powerless. If she were to forcefully fight for it, she would probably be torn into two halves on the spot. You care so much about my senior sister. Haha, you're such a sentimental seed. Mingyu Yuan laughed heartily. He thrust out a sword from under Dream Butterfly's armpit, and a dozen little black gas snakes immediately flew towards Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan picked up all the little snakes with his flower fingers, and then pointed at Mo Ku with a finger, and a finger force fire mark was about to burst out. However, Mingyu Yuan pulled Dream Butterfly over and blocked her path. If Xiang Nan pointed, the first person to die would be Dream Butterfly. Not good. Xiang Nan hurriedly condensed the Mo Ku finger and forced it back. This power reverberated, causing Xiang Nanjin's chest to feel suffocated, and he spat out a mouthful of sweet blood. Mingyu Yuan, you're so shameless. Meng Dai gritted her teeth angrily. Thank you, senior sister, for your compliment. Mingyu Yuan didn't care at all. He held the dream butterfly in front of his body and slashed at Xiang Nan with the sword in his hand. Countless small black gas snakes shot everywhere, enveloping Xiang Nan. Meanwhile, the crowd standing near Xiang Nan dodged one after another, fearing that they would provoke a fire. Xiang Nan took a flash step and used his fastest speed to reach Mingyu Yuan's side. He pointed at Mingyu Yuan and grabbed onto Dream Butterfly's arm. So fast. Mingyu Yuan was slightly stunned. His right hand hurriedly released Dream Butterfly, but with his left hand, he pushed Dream Butterfly's back. Brothers of the Black Flag, take it. The Dream Butterfly was pushed to the side of the black flag. Xiang Nan immediately turned around and pulled the Dream Butterfly with his flower fingers. At this moment, Mingyu Yuan found an opportunity. Black gas filled his hand and he struck Xiang Nan's back with his palm. Xiang Nan coughed out a mouthful of black blood, feeling countless small snakes running around in his body, gnawing crazily, corroding his internal organs. Chapter 395. You'll regret it. You've been hit by my 5 poisons black snake palm. Within a cup of tea, your entire body will turn into blood. Mingyu Yuan laughed happily. Brother I've warned you long ago. Isn't it asking for trouble to bring such a burden? Bai Wuji shook his head and sighed, feeling sorry for Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan didn't care how bad his health was, he still wanted to snatch the Dream Butterfly back. In the direction of the black flag, the black-robed man flashed and caught Dream Butterfly on the spot. Finally, he pulled out the gigantic black sword from behind him and used the sword blade to put it on Dream Butterfly's neck. Xiang Nan used his flower-picking finger to lift the black sword, and used his finger power to stick to Dream Butterfly, pulling it towards his side. The black-robed man slashed down with his sword, but his target was the Dream Butterfly. Its sword light was gray, thin as paper, and its speed was frightening. It was only a flash, so fast that people couldn't see it clearly. Xiang Nan did not dare to pull the dream butterfly back in a straight line, so he could only pinch her fingers and move her to the right. The thin black sword light immediately brushed against Dream Butterfly's body and flew out in extreme danger. "Let me discipline you on my behalf." A burly man jumped out from the direction of the Scarlet Tiger, and the burly man pulled the Dream Butterfly back. At this moment, Xiang Nan could only feel the poisonous gas running around his body. Black blood had already flowed out of the corner of his eyes. He hurriedly sat down cross-legged and circulated the 9 Purities Universe technique. Everyone looked at Xiang Nan strangely and said, "Is this brat planning to use his Yuan Qi to force out Brother Mingyue's poisonous gas? Ha ha ha. Brother Mingyue's 5 poisonous black snake palm is incomparably sinister. That black poisonous gas is like a maggot from a tarsal bone. It can't be scraped off even if it scratches a bone," the burly man laughed. Baiji looked at Xiang Nan thoughtfully. "Huh, you don't know the heavens and earth." Mingyu Yuan shook her head and looked at Xiang Nan with a mocking expression, as if she wanted to see how Xiang Nan would make a fool of herself in public. However, in the end, under everyone's gaze, black gas suddenly began to emerge from Xiang Nan's head. Then, Xiang Nan raised his hands high and shouted. Black gas shot into the sky from his body like swords. Ah! Mingyu Yuan was dumbfounded. Even the people from the other factions were dumbfounded. Just as Xiang Nan forced out the black gas, he sprinted towards the Scarlet Tiger without saying a word. "Qin Gang, be careful. This brat is very evil. With his 4th level origin returning realm, he can actually fight against the 7th level origin returning realm's Mingyu Yuan without distinguishing between us. Don't clash head-on with him." Behind the Scarlet Tiger, a person shouted loudly. The burly man wasn't going to fight Xiang Nan head-on, but when he heard that someone on his side told him to be careful, he got angry instead. "Who have I ever been afraid of?" The burly man let go of the dream butterfly and rushed out one after another, his huge fist fiercely smashing towards Xiang Nan. The Yuan Qi on the fist condensed into a ball of light. This ball of light also carried a terrifying attraction, sweeping the dirt and fallen leaves on the ground into it crazily. As Xiang Nan sprinted, he used his fingers to control the ball of light and quickly pulled it to both sides. The ball of light was quickly disintegrated into numerous strands of Yuan Qi by the powerful finger force, completely dissipating. Immediately after, Xiang Nan struck the big man's fist, and a terrifying palm force pierced through the big man's entire right arm, sending the big man flying. Pooh! The burly man was still retreating, but he had already spat out a mouthful of blood, causing the bones in his right arm to crack inch by inch. "Way to a palm." Bai Wuji clapped his hands and praised, "A disciple of the heavenly profound sect actually perfected the Buddhist sect's profound arts." He admired and admired them. "However, let me take care of this little girl." That 100 Ignorance grabbed Dream Butterfly and shouted, "Dragon capturing hand." Suddenly, a strand of Yuan Qi shot out from his arm. That Yuan Qi transformed into the shape of a small dragon, and its speed was extremely fast. The moment his Yuan Qi took shape, he had already grabbed the Dream Butterfly. With a shake of his right hand, the Dream Butterfly was grabbed beside him. Xiang Nan hurriedly turned around to fight for the Dream Butterfly. Bai Wuji grabbed Dream Butterfly's throat with 3 fingers on his right hand and said, "You dare to take another step closer." Xiang Nan was worried about Dream Butterfly's safety and didn't dare to be reckless. He could only look coldly at Bai Wuji. That 100 Ignorance ridiculed, "Originally, it would have been great if you had joined my team. If that had been the case, we would have already gained the advantage if we had worked together. You want to go against all of us for a woman? Xiang Nan's face was cold as he raised his right leg and was about to take a step forward. Close. That 100 Ignorance's hand that was pinching Dream Butterfly's throat increased its strength, causing Dream Butterfly's face to turn red. Now, go kill Mingyu Yuan for me. Bai Wuji sneered and said, otherwise, your little lover will lose her life. However, when Bai Wuji saw that Xiang Nan did not move, he slapped Meng Dai on the face. With a crisp slap, the slap was incomparably loud. Dream Butterfly tilted her head and sprayed a mouthful of red blood. This slap once again affected the green flame poison in the Dream Butterfly's body. The Dream Butterfly opened its mouth and spat out a large amount of blood. This scene caused Xiang Nan's eyelids to crack, and the veins on his forehead to jump violently. Hurry up and go. Bai Wuxing scolded coldly, if you don't go, I'll kill her. At this moment, Xiang Nan was surprisingly quiet. It was so quiet that people felt a chill run down their spines. Xiang Nan quietly looked into 100 Ignorance's eyes and said, I will remember this slap. You will regret it. Xiang Nan's eyes were filled with an indifferent aura, as if he was looking at a dead person. This gaze caused Bai Wuji to shiver. He turned to laugh, I've heard too many threats. Are you trying to scare me? You're still a bit young. Go kill Mingyu Yuan for me. Now, immediately. At this moment, the Dream Butterfly had a toxic attack. The green patterns once again covered her entire face. She was trembling violently, and her mouth was vomiting blood one mouthful at a time. She was about to die. Xiang Nan gritted his teeth and said, give me back the Dream Butterfly. I want to treat her injuries now. I promise you that I will kill Mingyu Yuan. Ha ha ha, do you think I'll believe you? That 100 Ignorance grabbed Dream Butterfly's throat even harder. With this pinch, he stopped Dream Butterfly from vomiting blood. The sweet green poisonous blood could not be spat out, but was pushed back into her stomach. At this moment, the Dream Butterfly's entire body suddenly started to spasm violently. Her eyes couldn't help but roll upwards, and even her white eyes were covered with green blood. I'll kill you. Xiang Nan was furious. He unleashed his dragon blood saber, and then his body suddenly turned into a streak of black lightning. In a flash, Xiang Nan and 100 Ignorance disappeared at the same time. Everyone hurriedly followed the fluctuations of Yuan Qi and looked up into the sky. They saw that Xiang Nan was holding 100 Ignorance's throat with his left hand and raising his great saber with his right hand. You, the 100 Ignorance paled in shock. He suddenly realized that he was no longer on the ground, but in the sky. Xiang Nan used lightning to escape and directly sent Baiji flying. He raised his huge saber and roared, how dare you attack her? I told you, you will regret it. I was wrong. The 100 Ignorance hurriedly condensed his Yuan Qi, wanting to counterattack, but at the same time, he hurriedly begged for mercy. However, he only said 2 words and saw the black saber shadow flash in front of him. Immediately after, he saw the world begin to rotate rapidly. The head of 100 ignorant people spilled blood and flew away. Chapter 396 Fight the Heroes Alone. Everyone on the ground widened their eyes in shock. What kind of speed is this? I can't even see his afterimage. Mingyu Yuan said in shock. However, on the other side, the Primordial Chaos Sect martial practitioners all roared, ah ah. He killed Senior Brother Bai. We want to avenge Senior Brother Bai. Another Primordial Chaos Sect martial artist shouted, kill this woman first. In the sky, Xiang Nan let out a roar of rage. Lightning burst out from his entire body and shot down with a loud boom. Originally, he wanted to land beside Dream Butterfly, but because of the use of the Void Stone, his consciousness fell into a short blurry state. This descent had actually fallen to the side and landed directly on the strong man of the Scarlet Tiger. Everyone saw a wisp of violent lightning descend from the sky, instantly blasting the burly man into pieces. Xiang Nan used his flower finger to pull the Dream Butterfly. As a result, his head ached and his head was dizzy. This finger actually missed the target and instead grabbed a cultivator from the Primordial Chaos sect. The martial artist borrowed his strength and raised his hand to slash down on Xiang Nan's head. Xiang Nan held the giant saber in his hand and let out an explosive roar. The dragon blood saber was raised. Lightning flashed on this saber, and not only did it break the sword of the disciple of the Primordial Chaos sect, it even cut him in half. Lightning Meridian's talent. Mingyu Yuan shouted, "This brat is not from the Profound Sky sect at all. He is Xiang Nan. He is Xiang Nan of the Haoran sect." They finally managed to force Xiang Nan's true strength out. Everyone's bodies trembled and killing intent appeared in their eyes when they heard the keywords Haoran sect and Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan grabbed the Dream Butterfly again and placed his left hand on its back, sending Yuan Qi into the Dream Butterfly's body. Mingyu Yuan scolded, "Don't hide your strength. Let's kill him together first." The four forces were afraid of each other. Before the demon origin fruit appeared, no one wanted to use up all of their Yuan Qi, but now, no one hesitated anymore. Many experts released their Yuan Qi at the same time, and the Yuan Qi soared into the sky. Within a radius of 1 mile, all the plants and vegetation were reduced to pieces. Once they used their full strength, their aura had indeed soared by several levels. Mingyu Yuan was the first to charge towards Xiang Nan. The sword in her hand slashed down fiercely. A massive amount of Yuan Qi condensed into a 10-meter-long black python. The black poisonous gas in the python's mouth pervaded, and it bit down on Xiang Nan. The people on the other side who wanted to surround Xiang Nan had no choice but to dodge because of the black python. Xiang Nan placed his left hand on Dream Butterfly's back and brought her to his left. He held the saber in his right hand and chopped out the first move of the Yang Flame Saber technique. The first stance of the Yang Flame Saber technique evolved from the first finger of Mo Ku pointed. It was also extremely fast. He saw a faint azure flame blade light instantly shoot out and immediately slash down on the black python's head. However, although the light cyan flame mark saber light was fast, its power was not the strongest. It was still not enough to meet Mingyu Yuan, who was at the 7th level of the origin reversion stage. Xiang Nan replenished his saber, and in the second stance, a dark green flaming saber light soared into the sky. However, Xiang Nan was dizzy. He looked at the people around him and saw that they were all blurry shadows. However, this saber slashed out and slashed a heavenly devil cult disciple into 2 halves on the spot. At this moment, the black python had already rushed down, its sharp teeth clenching onto Xiang Nan's chest. Xiang Nan was still wearing the black spotted armor. The armor could no longer keep up with such a high realm, but it was torn apart by the black python and bitten off. Fortunately, even though the armor was shattered, it still blocked Xiang Nan's path, leaving only 4 bloody marks on Xiang Nan's chest. On the other side, the Black Flag killers waiting for an opportunity to launch took advantage of this opportunity to move out. The black-robed man and the other 2 killers suddenly appeared behind Xiang Nan. The 2 of them held diamond-shaped blades in their hands to cut Xiang Nan's neck. The black-robed man raised his black sword high and slashed towards Dream Butterfly. Xiang Nan turned around and hugged the dream butterfly in his arms. He carried the black-robed man's sword with his back. Lightning flashed on Xiang Nan's back and was struck by the black sword. Lightning immediately splashed everywhere. The black-robed man felt his body stiffen from the lightning. He uncontrollably released his right hand and the sword flew into the sky. The strength of this sword strike was also transmitted to Xiang Nan's back. A bone-deep sword wound was hacked on his back, and red blood surged out. Xiang Nan was incomparably valiant, completely ignoring the injuries caused by this sword strike. He turned around and pointed at the black-robed man's forehead because he was too close to him to use the giant saber flexibly. Mo pointed at the second stance. A flaming finger force instantly pierced through the black-robed man's forehead. The man did not even snort. His entire head exploded into bones that were scattered all over the sky, and his brain slurred all over the ground. The three experts found an opportunity and surrounded him. Xiang Nan's right thumb pointed out, Mo finger, the third stance. A beam of flame shot out violently and was slashed by Xiang Nan's right hand. The beam of flame immediately swept 360 degrees. All the martial artists hurriedly dodged, some jumping into the air, some quickly lying on the ground. Two 5th-level Guiyuan Black Flag assassins didn't dodge in time and were directly sliced through their faces by the flaming light beam. A burning thread appeared on the cheekbones of the two men's heads, followed by the silent fall of the upper half of their heads. Mingyu jumped into the air and raised her long sword with an S shape. She saw the Yuan Qi black python draw two arcs in the air and its snake mouth bite towards the left side of Xiang Nan's face. Xiang Nan waved his right hand, and the intense flame beam directly hit the black python's head. It continuously exploded on the black python's face, releasing flames. However, the black python could not be sliced open in an instant. It was just that the beam of flames was constantly penetrating into the head of the black python. Everyone, don't be afraid. Although this brat's Mo finger is powerful, his realm is too low. We can handle it. When Mingyu Yuan saw this scene, her confidence immediately doubled. The constant consumption of Yuan Qi by the third finger was extremely terrifying. Especially when he used the third finger, the Yuan Qi that Xiang Nan sent into the dream butterfly's body would be cut off. Xiang Nan decisively withdrew his finger power. At this moment, his fighting spirit was high. He held Meng Dai's waist with his left hand, and his palm pressed against Meng Dai's stomach, sending Yuan Qi inside. His right hand slanted the giant saber into his embrace, shattering the tattered robe, revealing his muscular upper body. Come! Xiang Nan shouted, let's go together. Xiang Nan's ferocious performance caused the hearts of the martial artists to tremble. He thought to himself, isn't this kid really afraid of death? Xiang Nan's consciousness had gradually become clear. No matter what, he had to snatch a demon origin fruit today. Mingyu Yuan sneered again and said, everyone below the 7th level of the origin realm, retreat. You are no match for him. You will only die in vain if you go up. As they spoke, the martial artists at the lower realms all retreated 100 meters away, leaving behind only 10 experts at the 7th level of origin return. Mingyu looked at Xiang Nan from afar and said coldly, Xiang Nan, I will give you one last chance. If you are willing to stand by my side now, I will protect you from death. Xiang Nan looked up and laughed, from the moment you teased Dream Butterfly, in my eyes, you were all dead. Even if you kneel down and beg for mercy today, I will not let you off. Shameless. Mingyu was furious and shouted, let's go together and kill him. Chapter 397 Sublunar Manifestation. Huh, you killed my 100 junior brothers. Today, you must leave your head behind. In the Primordial Chaos sect, a 7th level origin returning expert stood out. This person wore an extraordinarily exaggerated loose robe, 2 wide sleeves fluttering in the wind, and his hands were slender with 10 fingers, containing an ice-cold yuan qi. I also want to avenge my junior brother Qin Gang. A person walked out from the direction of the Scarlet Tiger. This person's figure was exceptionally majestic. He had already reached 2.5 meters away. All of his muscles were bulging, and his body was suffused with a layer of metallic luster. Clearly, he was an earth element expert. The 3 of them rushed towards Xiang Nan at the same time. Although 10 people surrounded Xiang Nan, fighting among martial artists was very different from fighting among mortals. The martial arts skills of martial arts experts usually covered a wide area. If 10 people rushed forward together, they would be injured by mistake before they could kill Xiang Nan. 3 people working together to attack one person was already the limit of their cooperation. If there was even one more person, they would be unable to do anything, and it would not be good. Mingyu Yuan was the first to strike Xiang Nan. His sword, the sword light, was black poisonous gas. Before the sword light could hit Xiang Nan had already smelled a foul stench. Xiang Nan used the first move of 3 consecutive Yang Flame Saber techniques. 3 flame saber lights instantly took shape, and they quickly pushed Bright Moon far away. On the other hand, the Scarlet Tiger expert behind him smashed a heavy punch towards Xiang Nan's back. This punch was condensed with boundless power. The fist was made of steel, and its power was astonishing. Xiang Nan slashed backwards and struck the Scarlet Tiger expert's fist. With a clang, a large amount of flames burst out. Unfortunately, the Scarlet Tiger expert was also at the 7th level of the Origin realm, and he had an extremely obvious suppression of Xiang Nan's realm. This collision of saber fists actually sent Xiang Nan flying 5 meters horizontally, while the Scarlet Tiger expert only slightly tilted his body. On the other side, experts from the Primordial Chaos sect had already attacked. His hands formed claws, and his claws were quickly covered with ice. The ice was actually dark purple. Xiang Nan turned around and slashed at him, but he was grabbed by an expert from the Primordial Chaos sect. The dragon blood saber quickly froze, and the purple frost crazily spread towards Xiang Nan's right arm. Xiang Nan let go of the ice blade and pointed at the space between the eyebrows of the Primordial Chaos sect expert. He saw a strong beam of flames crazily shoot at the Primordial Chaos sect expert, pushing him out. The huge difference in cultivation realm caused Xiang Nan's finger power to fail to penetrate the Yuan Qi defense of the experts of the Primordial Chaos sect, but it burned through his frost, leaving a shocking burning mark on the forehead of the experts of the Primordial Chaos sect. Boom! Just as Xiang Nan's finger hit the Primordial Chaos sect expert, the Scarlet Tiger expert took the opportunity to sweep his whip leg across Xiang Nan's waist. The steel whip leg was extremely powerful, only breaking one of Xiang Nan's ribs and coughing out large mouthfuls of blood. Xiang Nan was even more ferocious. His entire body was twisted by the whip leg, and he was actually able to use his right hand to protect the Scarlet Tiger expert's right leg, pulling the Scarlet Tiger expert closer, and then slammed his palm into the Scarlet Tiger expert's stomach. This time, Wei Tuo's palm was released close to his body. Xiang Nan's palm landed firmly on the Scarlet Tiger expert's stomach. The terrifying palm power of Wei Tuo pierced through the Scarlet Tiger expert's body. The Scarlet Tiger expert's back bulged high, and a nearly transparent Yuan Qi palm rushed out from his back. His palm power was invisible and possessed a very strong penetrating power, but unlike the way the sword pierced through his body, there was no way to open a bloody hole for the Scarlet Tiger expert. Even so, the Scarlet Tiger expert's belly was blasted with a 2-inch palm print. The Scarlet Tiger expert spat out blood and flew backwards. His internal organs were already seriously injured. Once this person landed on the ground, he swiftly circulated his energy to adjust his aura. 10 meters to his left, the expert from the Primordial Chaos sect was also circulating his Yuan Qi and healing his injuries. However, once the two of them were repelled, 2 other 7th level origin returning realm experts would immediately make up their spots. In the distance, the scalps of the cultivators at the 5th and 6th level of origin return went numb when they saw this. Exactly what kind of monster is that brat? With his 4th level origin returning realm, he is inextricably linked to 10 7th level origin returning realm experts. Damn, is this the strength of the lightning meridians innate? His explosive power is too frightening. He can actually instantly pierce through the defenses of a 7th level origin returning realm expert. Don't forget, 7th level origin returning realm still has realm suppression. Everyone felt that what had happened on the battlefield was unimaginable. It simply exceeded their scope of understanding. Lightning Meridian's attribute. The 9 Purities Cosmos skill, the Great Freedom Scripture, the Purification Scripture, and the Sun God skill were all extremely powerful. It was precisely these martial arts that provided Xiang Nan with invisibility at all times, allowing Xiang Nan to fight the heroes alone. Just like that Sun God skill, although Xiang Nan did not temper the sun, it did not mean that he had practiced the Sun God skill in vain. This brat is at the end of his rope, he can't hold on any longer. Mingyu Yuan had always been paddling. He just wanted to find the right opportunity to harass Xiang Nan and was not willing to risk his life to fight Xiang Nan head-on. Only the other 3 forces worked so hard because their companions were killed by Xiang Nan. Listen to me. Mingyu Yan shouted, that little bastard named Xiang, if you want to break through our defenses, you must expend more Yuan Qi to make up for the weakness in the suppression of your cultivation realm. Especially since he's constantly sending Yuan Qi to that little bitch Meng Dai, let's consume him. That makes sense. Let's fight on wheels. An expert from the Primordial Chaos sect said. In Xiang Nan's mind, he quickly thought of a way to defeat the enemy. The tyrannical body lightning body could no longer be used. At Xiang Nan's current realm, a 5-fold increase in strength would not have much effect at all. Strength alone would definitely not be enough to win. The Thunder God seal was no good either. Although this great killing move was the most powerful, after it was used up, there would be a depletion of Yuan Qi. At that time, if the Dream Butterfly lost its Yuan Qi support, it would definitely die. The consumption of the Avatar imprint was too shocking, and it was similarly impossible to use. In the end, it was because Xiang Nan had too many enemies. Otherwise, there was no need for him to be so tied up. At this moment, the dark clouds in the sky suddenly dispersed a little. A full moon appeared from the dark clouds. The bright light of the full moon landed on the ground, illuminating the empty space that had been flattened by the battle. Immediately after, a strange scene appeared. Within a mile, there was no grass at all, but under the moonlight, an ancient tree was illuminated out of thin air. There were 5 purple gold fruits hanging on the ancient tree, each the size of a walnut. The demon origin fruit tree has appeared. Everyone cheered in unison. Quickly snatch it. The assassins of the Black Flag were the closest to the demon origin fruit tree. A 7th level Gue Yuan assassin shouted, forget about that brat. Let's go together and snatch the demon origin fruit. If we miss today, we will have to wait another 10 years before the fruit tree appears again. Who had time to pay attention to Xiang Nan? There were only 5 demon origin fruits. Everyone was afraid that the black flag would take the lead. For a moment, 10 experts of the 7th level of origin return rushed towards the origin fruit tree at the same time. Chapter 398 Fish in Troubled Waters. In terms of speed, who could be faster than Xiang Nan? Since he had already used the void stone once, if he used it a second time in a short period of time, he was worried that his injuries would be too severe and he would fall into a coma. Thus, he gritted his teeth, hugged Dream Butterfly, and rushed out with a flash-forward step. The other 10 7th level origin returning experts were all astonishingly fast as well. 10 different colored shadows shot towards the demon origin fruit tree. Xiang Nan was actually the first to arrive at the fruit tree. He grabbed a demon origin fruit, and without turning his head, he quickly flashed, wanting to flee this place. However, although he was fast, the others were not slow either. Under such extreme speed, the difference between the two sides was only a flash, and it was only a difference from an instant. Xiang Nan was the first to pick the demon origin fruit, and Mingyu Yuan was the second to pick one at almost the same time. The people from the Black Flag picked up the third one, while the people from the Primordial Chaos Sect and the Scarlet Tiger simultaneously placed their hands on the same demon origin fruit. The last demon origin fruit was captured by another Sky Demon Sect 7th level origin returning expert, along with the Hunyuan Sect, Scarlet Tiger, Black Flag, and the others. The other 2 were slightly slower and didn't get a single fruit. The 2 of them immediately shot out the Fierce Essence sword blades at Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan's flash steps moved at a straight line, and one of the biggest drawbacks was that it had a distance limit. A single flash step could only dodge 500 meters at most. When it landed 500 meters, there would be an instant pause. If Xiang Nan didn't care, he would definitely be caught up by the sword behind him. Helplessly, Xiang Nan could only forcefully jump out of the flash shadow steps. This is mine. Bullshit. Quickly let go. This fruit is mine. Hurry up and let go, or I'll chop you to death. The 4 7th level origin returning martial artists were competing for a demon origin fruit. None of the 4 of them would let go and compete with each other. Who would have thought that with this force, a demon origin fruit would be crushed into pieces with a puff? The 4 of them were stunned. Idiot! Idiot! Mingyu Yuan cursed angrily. The 4 7th level origin returning martial artists also felt extremely regretful in their hearts, but they didn't have time to think too much. The enormous greed in their hearts caused them to immediately aim for the nearest demon origin fruit. The demon origin fruit was being frantically fought over by the people from the Primordial Chaos Sect and the Scarlet Tiger Sect. The 2 of them had already fought against each other more than 10 times. The 4 7th level origin returning realm experts had long lost their rationality and quickly shot their Yuan Qi at the 2 of them. The people from the Primordial Chaos Sect went to beat the people from the Primordial Chaos Sect, while the people from the Primordial Chaos Sect beat the people from the Primordial Chaos Sect. There were also experts from the Black Flag and the Heavenly Devil religion who were fishing in troubled waters and attacking the 2 camps at the same time. Hurry up and stop. Are you idiots still going to destroy a demon origin fruit? Mingyu Yuan was about to go mad with anger. After a chaotic battle, the few of them were forced to retreat from each other. With a whoosh, the demon origin fruit was snatched away by an invisible finger force and fell into Xiang Nan's hands. Not good. That brat has obtained 2 demon origin fruits. Quickly snatch them. Everyone rushed forward. "Here you go." Xiang Nan shook his hand and threw 2 fruits into the distance. Those people didn't care about Xiang Nan at all. They only wanted the demon origin fruit, but when they saw Xiang Nan throw the demon origin fruit into the distance, they were like hungry wolves chasing after the 2 fruits like crazy. A black flag killer who had obtained the demon origin fruit immediately made a decision and stuffed the fruit into his mouth, chasing after the 2 fruits flying in the sky. "Spit it out." Mingyu Yuan's sword slashed down. The black sword light chased after the black flag killer. The black flag killer did not expect that there was a bright moon staring at him from afar. He was caught off guard and slashed down with his sword, colliding with the bright moon's sword light. A loud explosion was heard, and the circular shock wave spread out. The tremendous shock wave caused the black flag killer to spit out a mouthful of blood, spitting out all the fruits he was about to swallow. As for the fruit, it flew out with a whoosh and was actually snatched away by Xiang Nan with his flower-picking finger. In the distance, many experts had already caught up to the 2 demon origin fruits that flew out, but when they saw them from close range, they were all dumbfounded. "What is this?" The 2 fruits were about the same size as the demon origin fruit, but they weren't demon origin fruits. "Lightning burst fruit." "Damn, you've been fooled." The experts of the primordial chaos sect shouted angrily. Xiang Nan had once picked a bunch of thunder explosion fruits in the black sharp demon forest, but because the power of the fruits was limited, they were no longer needed. Instead, they had always carried them with them as souvenirs for him and Miss Rian's adventures. Who would have thought that today, the most useless lightning burst fruit would come in handy? Rumble. The 2 thunderbolt fruits exploded together, setting off a wave of fire. Those experts rushed out of the fire wave without any injuries, all of them ferociously pouncing towards Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan knew that he would definitely not be able to escape, so he threw out a golden rope. The rope turned into an alchemy prison, covering Xiang Nan and Dream Butterfly tightly inside. Many experts surrounded and attacked. Yuan Qi bombarded the alchemy cell one after another, but they were unable to break through the defenses of the alchemy cell. "Surround him. Don't let him escape. He has 3 demon origin fruits in his hand." As Mingyu Yuan spoke, her mouth continued to chew fiercely. There were only 5 demon origin fruits. 1 was destroyed, 1 was snatched away by Mingyu Yuan, and the other 3 were all in Xiang Nan's hands. The defensive power of the alchemy prison depended on the strength of the user. With Xiang Nan's strength at the 4th level of origin return, the alchemy prison would be broken in less than 10 seconds under the indiscriminate bombardment of 10 experts at the 7th level of origin return. At this moment, the alchemy prison had already begun to distort, and it could break open at any moment. Xiang Nan was also ruthless. He directly released the precious power of the white flame lightning. The alchemy prison instantly flashed with white lightning, and its defensive power increased by a few levels. "Dream Butterfly, come." Xiang Nan held on to Dream Butterfly's body and handed a fruit to Dream Butterfly's mouth. However, the poison of the Dream Butterfly was too violent. It was only vomiting blood and was in a semi-coma. Xiang Nan was ruthless. He stuffed the demon origin fruit into his mouth. After chewing it, he didn't care about the difference between men and women anymore. He kissed the Dream Butterfly, put the broken demon origin fruit into her mouth, and then used his Yuan Qi to push the fruit into her stomach. "No!" Many 7th level origin returning realm experts shouted angrily. "Xiang Nan, you dare! Hand over the last 2 demon origin fruits. If you dare to eat them, we will peel you alive." Mingyu Yuan pointed at Xiang Nan and shouted loudly. Xiang Nan looked at the people and said, "You want to kill me? Even if I hand over the fruit, you still won't let me go." "No, no, no. As long as you hand over the fruit, I will definitely let you go. I swear to heaven." The fruit power in Mingyu Yuan's body had already begun to work. He hurriedly sat down cross-legged and circulated his cultivation to refine the fruit, not forgetting to negotiate with Xiang Nan. Xiang Nan chuckled, "But I'm just begging for my life. What are you going to do to me?" As he spoke, Xiang Nan stuffed a demon origin fruit into his mouth and began to chew. "Ah! Stop eating, stop eating." One of the experts of the Scarlet Tiger sect lay on the alchemy prison and pleaded bitterly, "You ate one, Dream Butterfly ate one, and left us another. Don't eat any more." Seeing that Xiang Nan had killed 2 demon origin fruits, his heart ached like a knife. Chapter 399 Endless Stream. After Xiang Nan swallowed the demon origin fruit, he felt his body quickly recover, and his yuan qi, strength, stamina, and mental state greatly increased. Moreover, this speed was extremely fast. In less than 30 seconds, Xiang Nan felt that he had returned to his peak condition. Even the severe injuries on his body had disappeared without him noticing. However, Xiang Nan was also very smart. He knew that his white flame lightning burning power was limited, so he would only use it when others attacked the alchemy prison. When those martial artists did not attack the alchemy prison, he would stop the lightning burning power in order to last longer. It is indeed a miraculous effect. Xiang Nan was overjoyed. He hurriedly looked at Dream Butterfly. The Dream Butterfly slowly opened its eyes. The green threads on its white eyeballs, which were about to crawl full, were actually slowly retreating at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Good brother." Meng Dai stretched out her hand weakly and said, "Did you kiss me just now?" Xiang Nan's face flushed red. He hurriedly grabbed Meng Dai's hand and said, "This is truly a matter of insistence. I can only make this decision. I hope you won't get angry." Meng Dai shook her head with a smile and said weakly, "I feel so cool in my body. I feel like my internal organs and every pore have been washed by water. I have never been so clean." Xiang Nan said happily, "Well, I also have this feeling." "Then what about the toxins in your body?" Meng Dai said, "Those poisons seem to have shrunk into a ball and are hibernating." Hearing this, Xiang Nan couldn't help but frown. He hadn't expelled the poison yet. Just hibernate the poison. From the looks of it, the green flame poison seemed to know the power of the 30,000-year-old demon origin fruit, so it temporarily gave up on eroding the dream butterfly and chose to shrink into a ball. The poison was actually conscious. This is unbelievable. Come, eat this too. Xiang Nan placed the last demon origin fruit in front of Dream Butterfly. No. Many martial artists were shocked and hurriedly stopped him. Xiang Nan coldly looked at those people and said, "Now is not the time for you to attack me. Is it not the time for you to play tricks on Dream Butterfly? F***CK. I stole this demon origin fruit. I can give it to whoever I want to eat. Even if I break this demon origin fruit, it has nothing to do with you." At that time, the situation was critical. Xiang Nan didn't even have the mood to get angry. He just wanted to take back the dream butterfly. Now that dream butterfly's condition had improved, Xiang Nan's heart was filled with anger when he thought of what had happened earlier. Brother Xiang Nan, that's all a misunderstanding." Mingyu Yuan hurriedly explained, "If it weren't for Baiji, that brat who thinks he's smart, why would we fight? Not to mention, you've already killed Baiji. That brat deserves to die. You can't blame us. What are you talking about? When the other cultivators of the Primordial Chaos sect heard this, they immediately quit. Mingyu Yuan turned around and hurriedly winked at the people of the Primordial Chaos sect. He thought to himself, I need to stabilize Xiang Nan first. Come and eat. Xiang Nan ignored them and sent the demon origin fruit to Dream Butterfly's mouth. Meng Dai smiled and shook her head. Although this demon origin fruit is wonderful, it is still unable to cure the green fire poison. It would be a waste for me to eat as much as possible. It would be of great help to your martial arts strength if you eat it yourself. But Xiang Nan had just said, but when he suddenly felt several strands of Yuan Qi in his body start to run wild. Xiang Nan hurriedly sat down cross-legged. Immediately after, he felt that his vitality had instantly been depleted. It was because his realm was about to rise. Xiang Nan's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, he was already at the early stage of the 4th level of origin return, but he felt that his cultivation was advancing towards the middle stage of the 4th level of origin return. The Yuan Qi was not really in deficit, but the spiritual sea had suddenly expanded, and the Yuan Qi seemed to be insufficient. Xiang Nan didn't dare to neglect it. When his cultivation level rose, it was best to cultivate with a cultivation method to achieve the best results. In the past, Xiang Nan had used the 9 transformations of thunder to advance quickly, but this time, it wasn't to absorb the power of the divine lightning, so it had to be changed. The Sun God technique, the 9 purities cosmos skill, the Great Freedom Scripture, and the Marrow Cleansing Scripture were all supreme techniques. However, the 9 purities cosmos skill was the most useful technique for raising a martial artist's cultivation level. It could increase a martial artist's ability in all aspects. Thinking of this, Xiang Nan immediately circulated the 9 purities cosmos skill to coordinate with the medicinal effects of the demon origin fruit. As the cultivation technique circulated, Xiang Nan felt that his speed of improvement had suddenly slowed down. Although his speed had decreased, it was even more solid. How important is the foundation of martial arts? Presumably, every martial artist is clear. The stronger the foundation, the farther they can go and the stronger their strength will be. Some martial artists frantically raise their cultivation realm in order to pursue their cultivation realm, causing their martial Dao foundation to be unstable. Therefore, they would encounter even more bottlenecks on their martial Dao path. Moreover, their strength was too weak to be solid. This kind of person was usually the weakest existence amongst martial artists of the same cultivation realm. They could only barely bully people who were lower than their own cultivation realm. It was like building a building. Only when the foundation was stable would it be able to be built higher. Otherwise, the building would not be able to be built halfway through, and it would collapse if it came again. As for foundation establishment pills, they could only stabilize the current realm, but not the foundation of martial arts. Xiang Nan never dared to neglect his foundation. He had to go through a large number of actual battles in every realm to make his foundation more stable. The same was true this time. He was not blinded by the effects of the demon origin fruit and was pleasantly surprised. The medicinal effects of the demon origin fruit in Mingyu Yuan's body had also begun. He sat down cross-legged and began to cooperate with the demon origin fruit to increase his cultivation. The rest of them were all looking at me and you. They were as anxious as ants on a hot pot, not knowing what to do. Seeing Xiang Nan and Mingyu Yuan rise again, they could only be jealous. The demon origin fruit is so powerful. The Primordial Chaos Sect's 7th level expert gritted his teeth and said, "No matter what, you must obtain the last demonic primordial fruit." Right at this moment, a group of people suddenly walked in from the jungle outside the open space in the distance. They were also a group of martial artists. It looked like they were outsiders. Judging from their appearances, they should have come from the Central Plains. The realms of these people were generally extremely high. 6 of the 10 were at the 7th level of origin return, 3 were at the 6th level of origin return, and the first one was actually at the 8th level of origin return. Ah! Everyone present was shocked. Another food snatcher came. The Primordial Chaos Sect's 7th level expert took a step forward and cupped his fists. This is Primordial Chaos Sect, Lu Shiyuan. May I ask your name? The people from the Central Plains were slightly stunned. Why are there so many martial artists here? What are you doing here? Asked the 8th level origin returning martial artist at the front. Oh, I'm from the Central Plains, nicknamed Luoxue Wuhan, Zhao Tianxia. Zhao Tianxia glanced at the crowd and found that the person with the highest cultivation level was only at the 7th level of the origin realm. He relaxed and immediately put on an arrogant expression. Chapter 400 Realm Suppression. Zhao Tianxia looked at the people in front of him and then at Xiang Nan, who was cultivating in the alchemy prison with his eyes closed. What a powerful cage! What kind of treasure is this? He asked curiously. Lu Shiyuan and the others were unable to understand Zhao Tianxia's real situation, so they exchanged glances with their own people, not knowing how to continue this conversation for the time being. They definitely didn't want Zhao Tianxia to take a slice of the pie, but Zhao Tianxia was at the 8th level of origin return, and he was already at the highest level. May I ask why Brother Zhao came to the western regions? Lu Shiyuan asked. Hearing this, Zhao Tianxia immediately became cautious. The 3 7th level origin returning cultivators beside him immediately shouted coldly, "How dare you? What do we want? Do you think it's your turn to question us? How dare you?" Lu Shiyuan was instantly enraged. He was a disciple of the Grand Primordial Chaos Sect, and had never been scolded like this before. Not only did Zhao Tianxia not become more respectful when he heard the name of his Primordial Chaos Sect, he was even more unscrupulous. A strong sense of self-esteem caused Lu Shiyuan to become furious. He directly threw away a strand of yuan qi and attacked the person who scolded him coldly. Although this move was made with anger, Lu Shiyuan did not use his full strength after all. He was still a little afraid of Zhao Tianxia. Attack? Zhao Tianxia raised his eyebrows and saw him take a step forward. The yuan qi in his hand condensed and struck Lu Shiyuan's yuan qi attack with one palm. However, in this exchange, Zhao Tianxia suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood and flew backwards. Ah! Lu Shiyuan's eyes widened in surprise. He had only exerted 5 parts of his strength, and Zhao Tianxia, who was at the 8th level of origin return, was unable to catch it. Haha! Although Mingyu Yuan was still cultivating, he kept an eye on the changes in the situation and started to laugh. Mingyu Yuan said, "Brother Shi Yuan, it seems that this person is just a mediocre person. There is nothing to be afraid of." Martial artists were divided into many grades. If one didn't count cultivation as strength, they could be roughly divided into exceptionally poor aptitude, mediocre aptitude, slightly talented, strong strength, genius, ghost genius, heavenly longitudinal genius, peerless expert, and so on. This kind of classification was very vague, and it was not easy to locate it clearly. It could only give a general category. However, what was certain was that although Zhao Tianxia's realm was quite high, his strength was mediocre, and there really wasn't anything outstanding about him. So it's a bunch of trash. Lu Shiyuan shook his head and rushed forward. "Stop him!" Zhao Tianxia cried out in panic. Following Zhao Tianxia, 3 7th-level origin returning martial artists welcomed him at the same time. Lu Shiyuan's yuan qi condensed into a deep purple frost. He slapped out with his palm and clashed with a 7th-level origin returning martial cultivator. That 7th-level origin returning martial artist was instantly beaten into pieces of ice on the ground. Immediately after, Lu Shiyuan's figure flickered and he slapped twice. The last 2 7th-level origin returning martial artists were simply too weak in their reactions. They couldn't even see where Lu Shiyuan was, so they were blasted into pieces of ice one after another. That Zhao Tianxia was so shocked that he jumped up and was about to flee for his life. "Brother Lu, don't kill him. Spare his life. I can use it," Mingyu Yuan shouted. Lu Shiyuan had already chased after Zhao Tianxia and wanted to slap him to death, but when he heard Mingyu Yuan say this, he released a strand of yuan qi and captured Zhao Tianxia. "Spare me, spare me." After Zhao Tianxia was brought back, he knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. "Brother Mingyu, this person can't even take a single palm from me. What's the use of keeping such trash?" Lu Shiyuan asked, puzzled. Mingyu Yuan chuckled and said, "Save it for Xiang Nan." Ah! Lu Shiyuan was stunned, and the other martial artists also looked at each other. Lu Shiyuan asked curiously, "If we work together, there's nothing we can do about Xiang Nan. This Zhao Tianxia is a piece of trash, and he can deal with Xiang Nan by himself. Aya, it's broken." The dream butterfly fairy was eccentric and immediately thought of the problem. Mingyu Yuan smiled and said, "Brother Lu is confused this time. We won't be able to take down Xiang Nan in a short period of time, but this Zhao Tianxia can do it." "Impossible." Lu Shiyuan shook his head. With him, he probably even took a move from Xiang Nan. "Io." Lu Shiyuan patted his forehead and said, "I'm really stupid. Brother Mingyu is indeed smart, it's a realm suppression." Hearing this, Xiang Nan's heart skipped a beat. Zhao Tianxia was indeed trash, but he had the 8th level of origin return. Xiang Nan was indeed strong, but his greatest weakness was that his cultivation base was too low. The others all cheered. Mingyu Yuanyuan said, "Everyone has already attacked this cage, so we have some understanding of it. That cage must be based on Xiang Nan's own strength to strengthen his defenses. The reason why we can't break it is because our strength is insufficient. But Zhao Tianxia has a realm suppression that surpasses the 4th level of Xiang Nan. Why don't we let him give it a try? You! Hurry up and hit that cage, or I'll chop you to death with one palm." Lu Shiyuan threatened. How could Zhao Tianxia not obey? He walked over trembling and slapped the alchemy prison with his palm. With a buzz, the alchemy prison was actually slapped several meters horizontally. Even the golden railings on the cage were bent. Ha! As expected. Lu Shiyuan was overjoyed. A few of their experts attacked the cage, but the results weren't as good as a piece of trash at the 8th level of origin return. "All right." Lu Shiyuan praised, "Zhao Tianxia, help us break this cage open. At that time, I will spare your life." Hearing this, Zhao Tianxia immediately became excited and hurriedly said, "I will definitely do my best. Please rest assured, masters." "Humph, this little cage is nothing at all." As he spoke, Zhao Tianxia condensed his yuan qi on his right leg and kicked the cage. He actually kicked the cage backwards 10 meters away. A golden railing was immediately broken. Lu Shiyuan was quick-witted and stretched out his hand towards the broken railing, wanting to grab Xiang Nan's neck. However, before his hand could penetrate the crack, a buzzing sound rang out and he was bounced back by a layer of golden light. "Brother Lu, don't worry," Mingyu Yuanyuan said, "this cage is the overall defense. Even if one of the railings is broken, it still hasn't broken all of its defenses. Let Xiao Tianxia continue to fight." At this moment, Xiang Nan's realm had slowly risen to the late 4th level of the origin reversion realm, not yet to the late great realm. Helplessly, Xiang Nan could only release the power of lightning. Lightning flashed on the cage. Zhao Tianxia struck at the cage with his palm again. This time, the cage had only backed up by about a meter. Xiang Nan sighed. Although the power of lightning was powerful, it was no longer wild. As long as the power of lightning was absorbed by him, his own power would also be restricted by his realm. Fortunately, this strength was strong enough. It seemed that Zhao Tianxia would not be able to break through for a while. "What are you waiting for? Continue fighting," Lu Shiyuan said angrily. Zhao Tianxia was shocked and hurriedly continued to attack the cage. Every palm he struck would consume a portion of Xiang Nan's lightning power. Xiang Nan could only seize the time to continue to raise his cultivation realm, hoping to raise his cultivation realm to the 5th level of origin return before Zhao Tianxia broke through the cage. Novel Empire. Immortal God of Battle.